And shalom to everyone. We're so glad to have you all with us tonight. It's a time to come together. This is the day that Yahweh, who is our Elohim, he has made. It is our will, my desire, hope it's your desire to rejoice and be glad in it today. That's right. Another holy and wonderful day that Yahweh has rendered us. Those of you on Facebook, of course, as you know, please hit that heart sign, hit that like sign. Let us know that you're out there. It will do us a wonderful thing. Good to be with you from all over the world, actually, from you that are in Uganda. Thank you for showing up. Good to have you with us. Hey there, Ghana. Hey there. Good to see you all as well. And we speak to each and every nation that has gathered here today. Let us fall before the Father in time of worship and prayer. Yahweh, we love and adore you. We magnify, exalt, and extol you. We literally give your name the praise. We actually come before you now, hoping and believing that you would aid us in forgiveness and mercy and your grace and your spirit. Yahweh, this is that day you have made. It is our will to literally come before you in compliance to your instructions. And you made them very clear and simple. Yahweh, we've worked 6 days, many of us, some just 5. But the 7th day, along with the 6-day command to work, the 7th day is also a command to rest unto you. And Father, some of us have taken it sincerely, and some of us have taken it lackadaisically. Some of us have simply just fell in the door of Shabbat, desiring to be restored, refreshed, and renewed, morally drained, physically drained, sometimes spiritually drained. But we come in this day to drink from the well that is you. We ask you, as we have come to hear our cry, we ask you to forsake us not. We ask you that, Father, though we may have done 1.5 million things, and most of them may or may not have pleased you, today, this moment, this space, this time, we pray we please you to some degree, that we have come before you according to your word in worship. So we take this opportunity to ask your forgiveness for being slothful, to ask your forgiveness for being selfish, to ask your forgiveness for being absent in our mind about your will for our life. We ask you to forgive us for being timid about your will. We ask you to forgive us for putting our will over your will. We ask you to forgive us for thinking our will should supersede your will. We ask you to forgive us of murmuring, complaining. Forgive us of judging of others who are clearly and maybe a little bit different than us. We ask you to forgive us for judging someone who maybe sinned or erred in righteousness differently than we did. Forgive us for judging what someone else said in the society and the world and the sphere in which they live in, and we thinking we had right to weigh in on what they had to say. Because each man has to choose this day, every day, who they will serve. Forgive us for putting our mind on someone else's business instead of minding our own. You gave us a life to work the field of. You gave us a life to mine our field in. Father, we've been so busy dipping and dabbing in every other thing on the planet that seems so alluring and so shiny and so glistening in the sun, or laying and appearing valuable, a yard that looks better than our yard, the grass looking greener over the fence in another place than in our own space. mining it, gardening it, cutting this grass. Forgive us for anything we could have done. Covetousness, murder of our brother by doing such, murder of our sister by doing such, looking at another ministry, another leader, another spoken prophet, and Father, judging. Your mercy we seek, your blood we ask for, the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, the Lamb you sent to heal us, the Lamb you sent to cleanse us, the Lamb you sent to pay the ransom for the cost of redemption. Yeshua HaMashiach, we acknowledge your life. We acknowledge your compliance to the word that was in you. We recognize the completed work, even unto Calvary's cross, which is the manifestation of Pesach. We believe, but most importantly, after shedding your blood for our sins to give us a way to approach and be right stead with the Father, you rose again by the power of Yahweh our Elohim. And now you sit in the right hand, in the throne of Adonai, making intercession for other flesh suits such as us in the earth. Thank you. And thank you for giving us access to Elohim's glory. Yahweh, you've made it clear you would supply all our need according to your riches in glory by your servant, your way, your door, your lamb, your body prepared, your new high priest to humanity. He who is known as Yeshua HaMashiach. So we realize how you brought him in the earth. We realize how you birthed him in the earth. We realize how you caused him to walk and experience every temptation and every struggle and every pain that any human would ever face and experience. He is not tempted by every temptation we've ever had to experience, but yet he got victory through your word. You left him, gave him to show us how the word would bring us through the same world we live in. Thank you for the epitomizing of victory through his body for us. And we acknowledge that work. And we thank you for filling him with your word. And now rewarding him by sitting him in your word at your right hand, being our mediator between humanity and you, the divine. How excellent is your name, Elohim, in all the earth. We do exalt and we do extol. We lay down our pride. We lay down our education. We lay down our intellect. We didn't throw it away. We may even count it as dung, but we know we need it to operate in this earth. So we ask you, as we bring it before you in type, we ask you to hone it in, all that we've accomplished, all that we've acquired, all that we've been lauded and accoladed for. We lay everything, all our glory, we lay at your feet right now. We undress like King David took off his robe, which he was anointed to be king. We take off everything, every degree, everything we thought we were and thought we could be and have become, and we lay it down at your feet. If there's any value for us, we transfer that value, we transfer that glory to you. If you can use anything, we give you permission, because we would have no thing if it were not for you. And we get beside ourselves sometimes, thinking that we can do this in our own strength. But you remind us even now, it is not by might, nor is it by power, but it is by your spirit. Thus saith you, Yahweh our Elohim. And the spirit of your word is the creative power for our world. And today we come to study your word. We come to study that power. We come to drink from that well. We come to bathe from that fountain that flows from Emmanuel's veins. We come to drink from that well that flowed out of his mouth. We come to walk in the ways of you, Yahweh. We come to put on that yoke. We come to put on his yoke. We come to put on his yoke because it's easier than the yoke we've been doing all that we've been doing in. It's easier than the yoke of this world that we've been wearing. And your burden for us to bear in the earth is lighter than the burden we've been bearing, being parent, being spouse, being colleague, being owner, being subordinate, being religious leader, being congregant. Your burden is easier. So we come today to have you shift our burden, reset us, refresh us, renew us. Please. Reset our minds, transform us, renew our minds in you. Yahweh, we take seriously. Elohim, we take seriously. Ruach HaKodesh, we take you seriously. Adonai, we take you seriously. You are one. You are Elohim. You are God Father. You are God Son. You are God Holy Spirit to us in the English. You are Yahweh. You are Adonai. You are Ruach HaKodesh. You are one. Just as you made us, we are made in your image and in your likeness. Help us today to stop lying, even to ourselves. Show us, even if it's only for these remaining hours of this 24-hour time of Shabbat, show us truth that we stop lying to ourselves. We stop lying to our affiliations and denominational preferences. We stop lying to our world. We stop lying to our children. We stop lying, Father. We stop misrepresenting you. We stop mispropagating you. Your words today, we desire to hide in our hearts. So when we go back out into these 6 days of work, that we don't sin against you. Show us the way, Yahweh. We are asking for your fuel, for your light of righteousness. Be the lamp unto our feet. Be the light unto our pathway. Help us to drink from you, that we thirst no more. Help us to pull our thoughts and our imaginations into the obedience of your word. We give your word the preeminence in our lives. We think we do just because we pray every day. We think we do because we speak in tongues. Father, I curse the mentality of church off of our lives, even if it's only for the next 18 hours. And I beg of you for the spirit of your truth to rest in this space of study. Numb, shut down our default to our religious understanding. And give us a desire, as we searched out our religious learnings, to search out your word. I curse every combative spirit, every antagonistic spirit I release you to be our harmony. I repent. I can't release you to be anything. We simply acknowledge your desire and spirit for unity. Please, as each leader speaks, as each servant of yours speaks tonight and reads your writ, open our eyes, please, that the eyes of our understanding be enlightened, that all of our facades be burned off, all of our doctrines be tried through the fire of your word. And if it leaves it stubble as ash, or if it proves that our doctrines that we purport are in fact precious stones, we ask your word to do that today. We speak your unity, your peace, your fellows in a ship mentality. Every alt, every issue of anger, every issue of jealousy, every issue of antagonism, every issue that brings division, we don't want part of today. We want to speak about you, and we want and desire and clamor here so you can speak about you to us. Thank you for your word that gives us that conduit to you. Transform our minds by the renewing of our minds. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, Ruach HaKodesh, bring back to our remembrance the words we've been collecting as crumb trails all of our lives, and make the connections that we never saw before. Make these studies glorifying to you, edifying to us, shifting of us, elevating of us, only in you. Put our aspirations in check. Put our plans in check. Put our ideas back on the drawing board, right back in the laboratory. Open up our ears. Take out the wax that built up in our ears because we've been sleeping. Awaken us that sleep. Help us to lift our voice and our larynx as a trumpet and sound the alarm in our own life and line it up with your word before we ever think about lifting our voice to tell another how to live in you, and we ourselves have failed you. Yeah, we submit to you. We'll always be us, but we submit us to you right now. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we surrender control to you. Adonai, have your way. Yahweh, you know your plans concerning us. Your plans are always of good. They were never of evil. Your plans were always designed to give us an expected end. Make our expectations now yours. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we pray and we say, Amen. Come on, y'all. If y'all believe that prayer, that's what you want and you desire the same. Let's be in unity today and ask Yahweh to give us his will, not our own will. I'm so glad to be alive today. I don't really mean to be like alive, like you know, not where he is, but alive to really start experiencing and sensing different elements in the atmospheres of time. I think we should be very conscious and aware that we even also can feel pain. I was talking to several people. We've had several uh, deaths this past week. Uh, and each pain, you think you get used to them. Each pain of each person is different. Each mother is different. Each spouse of a beloved is different. The age differences, the 30s, the 40s, the 70s, the nephews of the auntie and the nieces of the favorite aunt. The pains are different. The children, each one is different. You think you get used to it sacerdotally as a leader, and yet each time it hits you different, and you learn more. You become compassionate in different ways. But I'm grateful that we're able to feel those experiences and emotions. This is not a, when I say that, thank you. I'm not. I'm speaking that when I say deaths, you got to understand. I don't mean whenever I come to you and say that people have passed away, that my personal family has passed on. As many of you know, I oversee so many tens of churches, so death is inevitable. I just note and make teachable moments of every experience that we deal with, and I was just grateful to be alive. I'm grateful I'm not numb to people's plight. I'm not trying to be deep, but deep calls unto deep. And I'm grateful that I can feel um, a cough. I'm grateful I can feel if I'm ever infirmed. I'm grateful that I can feel if in my flesh, I can feel. I don't know if we understand the expression of life in feeling, not being led by feelings, but being able to feel as you are led through life, the different nuances, the sense, the light to sight, the darkness, the different emotions that each of us go through. I think it's a beautiful thing. So today we want to share with you all and study together. And I'm hoping that we can get some of these dynamic people who are with us in this process and programming to share together. I'm really sensing that there needs to be a Psalms 133 moment. Can we all just go there very quickly? Let's just get right into the word, because Shabbat is supposed to be about the word of Elohim. How do we know that? Let's talk about how to Shabbat. And I'd like for as many as can, if you're on Clubhouse with us, please accept the microphones that we'll be sending down to you. If you are also with us on any of the visual streaming video channels on our social media that we are a part of, please feel free to type in and communicate with us and study together. But I want to start with Psalms 130 and 3. I'm hoping that someone can join me in that particular reading. I can do it. I just don't want to leave myself as the only speaker here today, and give others opportunity to share within the lines of what we read. Psalms 133. And then we're going to get right into how we should Sabbath, what Sabbath looks like. Many people are becoming enamored with the I'm going to say these things on purpose wrong, so you can know what we're doing and how it should be corrected, biblically, Torah based. We're becoming enamored with end time prophecies. That's always been an issue within Christendom, within society. You got Nostradamus, you got the Mayans, you got the prophecies of the prophets, you got the prophecies of the Apocrypha, the prophecies of the Holy Bible. You got all of these different things where people think they know what the end is going to be. And so we're enamored with that. And then we've graduated a little bit within the culture of faith seeking, and we've begun to put ourselves in the lifestyle of an ethnicity. And Yahweh wants us to be in the lifestyle of his word. So we become enamored with learning about our Jewish Savior, learning about our Hebrew roots, and learning about this, that, and the other, and not learning him. So days like Shabbat help us to put things into perspective, not denominational perspective, not denominational perspective, but the doctrine of Messiah. What did he do based on the records we have of his life that are the governance for our faith? No other commentary other than his word. So I would like for us to just get sort of kind of resettled, resetting ourselves and asking for Yahweh, hey, I lay down this clay, this lump of clay that I am into your hands, and I'm asking you to pour your water over me, get me back on your wheel, start molding me the way you want me to be, make me the vessel, make me the cup, make me the bowl, make me the fork, make me the spoon, make me the ladle that you need me to be, and not the thing that I see attractive and think I want to be and I should be, especially if me being me doesn't make me the me you sent me to be. That part. Psalms 133. Do we have anybody willing to participate and help in this element of unity? You know what? Let me start it, and then we'll go. We'll use different readers and different people to expound on the passages that we'll bring up later on. Psalms 133. Let me show you why this is important tonight. Psalms 133 verse 1 goes on to say, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." Now, I want to show this piece here from verse 1 when it says brethren, ah. Now, you've heard that word other places, ah, aki, right? And some of you may know the different faith systems that you hear that in. I'm not going to expound on that, but I do want to touch what ah means in the Hebrew. All right. Not being Jewish, not being any of the other denominationally connected faith systems and doctrines of preference, but just biblical. What does it mean? So the word ach, when he says brethren, is the word that is used in its widest sense, both in relationship and metaphorical affinity, or it resembles the most, is in fact kindred. So this this kindred spirit, my brother, we're talking to and about a kindred spirit, not like Elohim has a whole world in his hand. You know, we're all brothers. Messiah made it clear that we're not all brothers. Wow. Yeah. And here's what we mean by that. Yahweh did create all humanity. He created me, he created you. He created the people that came before us, and whoever comes in Whoever just got, somebody is just now born. Just that statement. I don't know how many people, but people are being born right now as we talk. He created them. He created Moshe. He created every person of our records of history and storylines we have. He's created everybody, but we're not brethren with all of them. We are all his creation. We are all his creatures. But those that obey him, that those are his sons and his daughters. And those of us who obey him and become his sons and daughters, now we're no longer creatures. We are his children, kindred spirit, listening to his voice, honoring his desires in the earth because he created us for his glory, his purpose anyway. Let me say it naturally before some of y'all think I'm being super spiritual. I have children. You may have children. You may be looking to have children, but never get it twisted that the child that comes from your loin seed or females from your womb, an incubator, never get it twisted that the human that came from that conjugative moment, that reproductive experience, before you say that's my son, that's my daughter in a loose kind of way, you may say that's my child. But every child is not your son and is not your daughter. What makes a child a creation from the spirit of from being as progenitors. Don't think every child is your son or your daughter, because only the people who understand who you are to them and value you matriarchally or patriarchally in said position are your son and daughter. Otherwise, there's just your child. That's my blood and that's my bone, that's my sinew. But they don't listen to me, they don't obey me, they don't respect me. That's not my son, that's not my daughter. That's a child that came from me. Now, some of you may think I am very off for saying that. I would ask you to sit in my counseling sessions and after about a good month and a half, tell me if I'm wrong. And then we realize that we're created in Elohim's image. Watch, even Elohim calls his creation, me and you. If we obey the world, he calls us the children of the world. He calls us the sons of the world, whose father is evil, whose father is the contrary to his instructions. But those children, creations in the earth who obey his word, those are my sons, those are my daughters. And this is what we need to understand. So when we talk about this word, brethren, isn't about just you coming from the same mom and dad. It's about being brethren, having kindred spirit. We're here to serve the one true and living Elohim. Messiah said it this way so that I can end this in a sense of authority and accurate depiction. Messiah, as you've heard tell before, would say he was approached. Let me pull it up very quickly, and then we're going to go there. He was approached. He is approached in Matthew chapter number 12. And in Matthew 12:46, he makes a statement that he's asked about. And let me do it this way. All right, let's go down here to Matthew 12. We are going to stay in Psalms 138, but I want to make sure we understand what Messiah says about this word ah. Now, I am going to read from the King James Version. So Matthew chapter 12, verse number 20, and let's do this very quickly. Verse number 20, this is pretty deep. Let's go to verse number 22. When they brought him, Yeshua, a demon-possessed man, let's watch this, who was blind and was mute, Yeshua healed him so that he could both talk and see. All the people were astonished and said, could this be the son of David? Now, I want to be very clear about this because this is where it gets really interesting, okay? He makes the statement again. He says in verse 22, they brought him one who was possessed with the devil, blind and dumb. He healed him, insomuch that the blind and the dumb both spake and saw. Verse 23, all the people were amazed and said, is not this the son of David? Verse 24, but when the Pharisees heard it, they said, this fellow does cast not out devils, but by any other spirit than the spirit of Beelzebub, who is the prince of devils. And Yeshua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom that is divided against itself is brought to desolation. Every city or house that is divided against itself shall not stand. Verse 26, listen, pay attention. Listen, verse 26, Matthew 12, 26. And if Satan cast out Satan, he's divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? And if I, by the spirit of Beelzebub, cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore, they shall be your judges. Now, I think I may have taken okay, keep reading. Listen to this. So now we're in verse number 29. Verse number 27. If by Beelzebub they cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore they shall be your judges. Verse 29, verse 28. But I cast out devils by the spirit of Elohim. Now, before we go back to 138, Psalms 133, look at this word, by the spirit of Elohim. So in Matthew 12, I'm going to pull up another resource, another Bible. It just happens to have my concordance. And I want to make it clear for us in verse number 28, when he says, I cancel and cast them out by the spirit of Elohim. All right. That word, that phrase, that Hebraism, I cast them out of the God likeness of what's in me, the spirit of Elohim that is in me. And this is what he is saying. This is what he wants us to understand. This is not some weird place that we go to or some weird thing that we say or misinterpret. So I want us to look at this because it is a necessary truth. So pay close attention to this next part. He goes on to state in Matthew 12, and I want you to really hear this. Don't just let your religion respond. Listen to how he talks to us. Listen to what he says to us. He says, verse 28, but if I cast out devils by the spirit of Elohim, then the kingdom of Elohim is come unto you. Verse 29, Or else how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil that strong man's goods, except he first bind up the strong man? And then he'll be able to spoil that house. Verse 30, he that is not with me is against me. Whoa. This is what Messiah said. If you're not with me, you are against me. And he that gathers not with me, then is one who scatters abroad. Verse 31 goes on to say, wherefore I say unto you, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto men, but the blasphemy against Ruach HaKodesh, blasphemy of Ruach HaKodesh shall not be forgiven unto men. Verse 32, and whosoever speaketh the word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whosoever speaketh against Ruach HaKodesh, it shall not be forgiven him, neither in this world, neither in the world to come. Verse 33, either make a tree good and his fruit good, or else make a tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruits. Now, this is again where we can be sort of kind of religious and theological, and Yahweh will be requiring us to be practical. Just take another second to hear this. A tree is a tree. He says either make the tree good or make the tree corrupt. Verse number 34. O generation of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A good man, out of the good treasure of the heart, brings forth good things. And an evil man, out of the evil treasure of his heart, brings forth evil things. Whoa, 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 whoa. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. Not the day you and I judge man, in the day of Elohim, judging all life. Verse 37, Matthew 12:37. For by the words and your words shall you be justified, and by your words shall you also be condemned. I need someone to grab Isaiah 58 for me, please, as we learn about how to Shabbat. Can I get a volunteer, please, for Sid? Isaiah 58. Come off mic, say your name. Whoever you are, doesn't matter who you are. No, it doesn't matter if you're a mod or not. Please, if you're in Clubhouse, I need your vocals. So if there is a person who can help me with Isaiah 58, 13 through 14, I'd like for you to say your name, come off mic, say your name, and I'll assign that you, and then you'll come on and share that with us in just a few. But I want to make sure we understand this piece that he speaks about, because this is really important to knowing that a child is your creation, or is your offspring, is your offspring. But your offspring may not want to be your son or your daughter. And I think until every parent gets that in their head, we are going to be constantly operating under a narrative that Elohim doesn't even endorse. My hands are up. Our eyes are in the word. You tell me. Let's watch. Do I have a volunteer for Isaiah 58? No worries. I got it. Geesh? All right. Thank you, Geesh. Who was that?
Isaiah starting at 1.
Who was that?
Starting at 1.
Is this Geesh?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. I'll bring you in queue. All right.
Okay.
He says in verse number 37, Verse 36, he says, but I say unto you that every idle word that a man speaks, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. For by your words shall you be justified, and by your words shall you be condemned. Isaiah 58, 13 and 14. Would you please read that for us?
Yes, 13, Isaiah 58, 13. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahweh, honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thy own pleasures, nor speaking thy own words.
Hold it.
Then shalt thou.
Nor doing what?
Thy own ways.
Nor
own words, sorry.
Nor speaking your own words. So the creator who gave us life has isolated time in life to rehearse not speaking our own words, but purposefully speaking his. My hands are up. My eyes and ears are in the word. So when he says, Messiah says, long after what Gish is reading from the prophet Isaiah, and the prophet Isaiah is admonishing them from the Torah, that Yahweh has a desire, we speak his words. And since Messiah says, all of us, every idle word we say, we're going to have to give an account for. We are going to be condemned by the words we speak, and we will be, as he says, justified by the words we speak. Sabbath is crucial to you and I standing before the Father, justified that we at least made the effort to do his will in the earth, because we practice, we Shabbat, because we Moedim, because we rehearse his words, so that, like David, thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against you. And your word can, one, be a light to my path forward, a lamp unto my feet in every step I take. Thereby, I walk the way you say walk. And you can say when you meet me, well done, my good and faithful servant. It's real simple, but it can be bothersome to many because we don't think it's that practical. Listen to what Messiah continues to say about this issue. Verse 36 says, but I say unto you that every idle word that a man speaks, they shall give account thereof in judgment. For by the words for by your words shall you be justified, and by your words shall you be condemned. I want my words to be his. I'm just interjecting. I'm not reading. This is VW speaking. I want my words that I speak in this world to be his. Some of you say, oh, that's just impractical. That just makes no sense. You can't do that. Yeah, you can. I don't know if anybody want to join me in that confession. You don't have to come off mute, but it'd be nice if you did. Just make that clear to Elohim today. I want my words to be yours.
I want my words to be yours. I want my words to be yours.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at this. He says in verse 36, but I say unto you that every idle word, verse 37, but by your words, verse 38, then certain of the scribes, the religious people, look at what they did. Look at what they did. Let me reset this. Let me reset this. Verse 36, Matthew 12, 36. But I say unto you, every idle word that a man speaks, he's going to give an account in the day of judgment. Verse 37, for by your words you're justified, by your words you're going to be condemned. Verse 38, look at these church people. Then certain of the scribes and the Pharisees, you know, the people who study the Bible, these are the theologians of that day. These are the pastors and the leaders and the evangelists and the missionaries and the men of God and the women of God of that day. And then certain of the scribes and the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, you talk good, but would you do us a favor? Would you give us a sign from you, if you are who we are purporting you to be? Would you give us a sign, please? Verse 39. But he answered and said unto them, only an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. And quite frankly, there shall be no sign given but the sign of the prophet Jonas. Do you remember that story, Mr. Scribe? Mr. Pharisee? Do you remember that story? For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man. Notice Messiah keeps saying the Son of Man. He doesn't say the Son of God. He says the Son of Man. So shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the earth, in the heart of the earth. Verse 41. The men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation. And they're going to condemn it because they repented when Jonah was in their presence preaching what I'm telling you guys. And behold, someone greater than the prophet Jonah is sitting right in front of you. Verse 42. The queen of the south shall rise up in judgment with this generation. And the queen of the south is going to condemn it. For she came from the uttermost parts of the earth to hear the wisdoms of Solomon. And behold, a greater than Solomon is right in front of you. Verse 43. When an unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walks through dry places, seeking rest, and finds none. Then he says, I'm going to return to my house from where I came out of. And when he has come back, he finds that that house has now been empty. It's now been swept. It's now been garnished. Verse 45. Then goes he and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and they dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. Wow. While he yet talked, all right, here's why we're here. While Messiah yet spoke to these Pharisees and scribes, verse 46, while he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without. They stood outside of the circle, desiring to speak with Yeshua. Let me repeat the verse. While he was speaking to the crowd, like Jonah, like Solomon, behold, his mother, Miriam, and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, your mother and your brethren, they stand over there. They stand without. They want to speak to you. Listen, while he is in full ministry mode. Messiah is in full ministry mode, not arrogance of his title, not arrogance of his cloth and position. He is in service for the purpose for why he exists. He says these words. He answered and said unto them, Who is my mother? And who are my brethren? Now, I oftentimes think about how I would feel if I walked up and my son and my daughter in their element, and I'm sitting in the backstage or I'm sitting in the crowd, or I'm sitting off to the side, and I do want to chat with them. I came to see them, and then I see them say this, and I'm looking at this conversation from a distance, and then they spread their hand towards their crew. They spread their hands towards those working with them to accomplish purpose. I'm hoping that they're fulfilling their earth. And then they say to me, who is my mom? Who was my dad? Who was my brother? And then they point over to their staff and say, look at what he says. He says, he stretched his hands towards his disciples, towards his Talmudim, and he says, behold, those are my mother and my brethren. Verse 50 seals it. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same is my brother, the same is my sister, the same is my mother. So you can be a creation, you can be an offspring and not be a son. You can be a creation of Elohim, tree. That's what he always calls us. But the fruit of that tree needs to be righteousness. And he is very clear. You can be an offspring and not be a son. Yahweh is very protective of his creation, but he's also requiring his creation to turn unto him. When you turn to him, that's why he says the people in Jonah's day, they're going to rise up in judgment against you guys. Because at least Jonah came through town and said, guys, repent. And they did. You got somebody greater than Jonah sitting in front of you. And I'm telling you right now, Yochanan, who came before me, kept telling y'all you're doing this wrong. And just behold, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's coming. It's coming. He's here. We herald him. And then I get here and you don't even recognize who I am. The people who were in Jonah's day are going to rise up in judgment against you. Oh, another woman who wasn't even a part of Israel came all the way from around the other side of the world, Queen Sheba of the South. She then getting here, talking to Solomon, she's going to stand up in judgment against you. Because one greater than Solomon is sitting right here with you, and you are still not going to obey. And so now I'm sitting in this arena with you all in flesh, and you're still not even trying to understand me because you're trying to defend your religion. You're trying to defend your likes and your digital currency. You're trying to defend your empire you built and your control over the people and the masses by the words and the doctrines and the things. You're trying to defend you. There is going to be a judgment against every idle word you speak. And if you're not speaking Elohim's words, we got to give account for that. Oh, Jones, man, you just doing too much. I'm sorry. I may be. But I don't know about you, but I don't want to hear Yahweh say, Elohim say to me, depart from me. Even though you spoke my words, even though you taught people my words, you still worked iniquity. Knowing my word, I don't want to hear him say, depart from me. I'm really wanting him to say, welcome into my rest, my good and full of my word speaker and doer of my word, servant in the earthen realm. Does that make sense, or y'all think I'm just being super spiritual?
Lots of sense. Lots of sense, yes. Yes, makes sense.
I really don't think, I think that because Yahweh does not answer and judge immediately like he used to do in those days, that we think he gotten soft and just gonna let stuff slide. Like there's not gonna be a day of reckoning. And that's why when I come into Sabbath, I may wreak havoc in the 6 days of this world, but if he makes it and lets me live to get to the seventh day, I'm coming in with my hands up. Anybody like me? He's like, I'm coming out with my hands up, Yahweh. I'm coming out with my hands up. I'm here. Anybody like I'm here, Father. You know, the songs we sing are so beautiful, but I don't think we make the proper connections because we might have gotten a revelation and we wrote it down and it sounded awesome, but we don't really get it. Two songs come to mind right now. When I come into Sabbath, I mean, they are so prevalent in my head. And for fear of making you guys think I'm weird, I'll hold it back a little bit sometimes. But like now, it's like two songs come to mind. I surrender all. Everything that is me, I come into this day and I surrender it to you. I surrender all. Right. Another song that comes to mind, a bit more modern than that old hymn. And it is, here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God, Elohim, right? And if I can make it to Shabbat, which I practice every day before I go to sleep. You remember that prayer we used to pray in Christianity? Now I lay me down to sleep. I can make it into rest, because that's what sleep is in our everyday life. Every day we have these hours of sleep, right? So a day is a microcosm of a week. A week is a microcosm of a season. A season is a microcosm of the eternal plan of Elohim to bring us back to him. So every day he has put in it a way to practice Sabbath, sleep. So when I come into rest, before I lay down, now, after working all day, I lay me down to sleep. I pray you, Yahweh, my soul to keep. That means I'm surrendering my soul to you. And while I'm in sleep mode, I hope you keep me until I wake up. But if I should die before I awake, I'm praying you, Father, I'm surrendering all to you, my soul to take. Do y'all remember that prayer? Any of y'all still teach your children that prayer?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
It starts to deal with you as you get older. And you realize some of the stuff you said was the right stuff to say, but it was presented in the wrong way. And it was presented in the wrong vein. But it's perfect for the true intent of Yahweh or Elohim. So I want us to get this, and I want us to understand this very clearly. Awesome. Someone's having, again, we're having these technical glitches and people are still having a problem. Get on. All day it's been that way. So I want Yahweh to today. I'm glad to be having service with you guys, but we're having some real issues with signal. But back to surrendering all to him. Every day you go to sleep after you work, you're supposed to get 5 to 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day, right? And if you break that down in a 24-hour day, 8 times 3 is 24. So 2/3 of your day you work, 1/3 of your day you rest. 6 days of the week you work, one full 24-hour period of time you rest in Elohim. And if you want him to take your soul, you would do well, I would do well, if it is time for me to expire. I pray you, Yahweh, my soul you would take, because I've surrendered my life to you. I've adapted and adopted your words to live by and govern me. But if you don't know his word, and though you may have an intrinsic value of his word, because it's very clear that Yahweh put his word in our mind and in our heart, but to acknowledge that and to intentionally, practically search his word out so that it can make an impact internally in your life and your steps can be conducive to his desire for his creation, matriculating into his people. We need to know his word. And if we don't know his word, so what does he do? He gives us a day every week to practice full board knowing him. From the very first time he made humanity, the very first day humanity started its assignment in the earth, the first day after man was made, Yahweh gave him a day of instructions called the Sabbath, the seventh day. What happens? Man is made to till the ground. I don't have a man to till the ground. Yahweh makes humanity. Then he makes humanity to have dominion. He makes man after he made everything for man. Then he says, after making everything well, cutting off the making of things, he makes man last and then says, man, come sit with me so I can speak through you what I've given you, and you can understand from my mouth what your job is. And when you sit with Yahweh in the day of the seventh day, as he did with man in Genesis chapters 1 and 2, he sat man down on the seventh day to give man words. And everything that Adam called what Yahweh brought before him, that is the name of that thing. Well, how did Adam know what to call these things? You think it could be possibly that the creator of all things and the creator of him, pulling him into a meeting with him, told him, that's an elephant, that's a giraffe, that's a silverback, that's a hippo. In that blue mass out there, those are squids, sharks. Not that that's your concern. You just worry about this dirt. That's a tree. That's peppermint. That's thyme. That's hemp. Yeah, don't burn that. That's sage. That's apple. That's fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Come here. That's the tree of life. Is it me? Or does it literally indict that Yahweh had a meeting with him to tell him what to say. And when he disobeyed what he said, you and I were born into sin. Is it a difficult thing to comprehend? Y'all can talk to me. I don't.
On our own at first, yes.
Who's
down, no.
who's speaking? Who's that?
That's Gish.
Okay, Gish. Go ahead, Gish.
I was saying with reading it and getting our own understanding is difficult, but the way you're breaking it down, it changes the whole thing. It makes it easier to really puts the puzzle together, put it that way.
It gives us something to consider, and it doesn't take it away from the actual text of the writ. And for those who might concern themselves with whether or not we did eisegetically or subjectively make that conclusion, we can really read it in Genesis chapter 1. So we're talking about how to Shabbat. This is very important. So we're leaving Matthew 12. We're going to go back to Psalms 133. But on our way back to Psalms 133, we can make this infusion of just how important Sabbath is to us. What did it have to do with Yeshua telling them, verse number verses 47 through 50, when he says, my mother, my brother without, he said, who is my mother, my brother? He stretched his hand, says, this is my mother, my brother. Whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same as my mother, my brother, and my sister. A lot of us think that we're the brother of Messiah. We're the brother of Yeshua. And we're not doing what the Father said. I ain't judging nobody, because I know in the course of a day, in the course of a week, in the course of a month, in the course of a minute, I can be in and out of being his brother. I can be in and out of being a child of the Most High. I want us to keep it 100 with ourselves. Do you realize at any given moment, contrary to this doctrine that says once saved, always saved, contrary to this doctrine that says I am saved by grace and not by law, because we misunderstood that, right? I'm saved by grace, not by works. I am under grace, no longer the law. How many of us can admit that in an old adage, you may know best? Don't make me lay down my religion. I'll lay my religion down and I'll whoop you, and then I'll go back to the altar and pray, God, forgive me. Don't you make me lay down my religion. How many of y'all will confess and admit that any given moment we can lay down the instructions of the Father, and by doing so, you're no longer operating as a son of Elohim or a daughter of Elohim. Because whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same as my brother, the same as my mother. Just let it. I mean, I don't know how to say it any better, but let's let it. I think we owe it to marinate. So let's get back into how to Sabbath, because I don't want to get too deep into that. But let me do this. Let us do this. And I'd like to have somebody share this with me. Does anybody remember when Messiah was being arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane? I always go back here because there's so many teachable moments from that experience. Messiah was in the garden. He prayed 3 hours. Udas came with the Levites to, in fact, betray him. So the Levitical guard came with Udas. Udas kisses Yeshua on the cheek as the script was to play out. That's what the Pharisees who paid him told him to do so they could identify Yeshua, because he had no form or shape or comeliness where we would desire him. He looked so common with his own group that they didn't even know which one was him. If y'all want to study something and be deep, study that. Even though they saw him in certain groups, there were times they could not tell him from the others. Udas had to be the one to actually betray him and kiss him to identify him, that that's the person. Because when you're all doing the will of the Father, you all look alike. Let me move on.
Wow.
Let me move on. I can't get stuck there. Let's move on. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same is my brother, same as my sister, the same as my mother. So when they betray him, Udas has to go and kiss him on the cheek. Now watch what happens. Peter, zealous for Elohim, zealous for Yeshua, zealous to save him, he cuts off the man's ear. We know he puts the ear back on. Whole nother teachable moment. He then runs. They arrest Yeshua, Peter, and all the disciples that were down the hill, and the sons of thunder and Yochanan that were with him in the hill. They all scattered. They got away. Yeshua was their target. They apprehended Yeshua. They arrested him, burlap sapped him, carried him through all the way down to this kangaroo court at Herod's temple, or at the priest, where the priest was. And on their way to journey, this mob is there. It's weird because this mob is out there at night, like weird hours of the night. And they see, when they get to the temple, Kepha, Peter. And you know these little nosy women? Yeah, it's true. True story. I'm not lying. One of these little nosy temple church ladies with a little eye up like this, you know, them ones like ABC News, we used to call them, Mr. and Mrs. C, you know, busybody, all in everybody's business. She's like, ain't that, I think that's one of them guys that was with him. And they said, oh, that's one right there. That's one right there. He won too. He won. Look at it. I think that's that boy Peter. That's that Kepha boy. And they go up and they ask him. He says, ain't you one that was hanging out with Yeshua, buddy? He said, no, I'm not. No, I don't hang out with him. Yes, you was. You one of them ones. And to show he was not, he acted in a way that would never have been the way that the Talmud and the Messiah would act. He starts cursing and cussing, and his language, and so that his tongue wouldn't betray him. Let me ask y'all something. Was Kepha in that moment a son of God at that moment? Denying the Messiah?
No.
No, he was not.
Some of y'all say not at all. Some of y'all say no. Some of y'all say no. Does anybody else think that, oh, he was fine? He was okay. If the rapture would have took place right then, if Messiah was to take everybody to heaven that was on him, would Peter have made the call, y'all?
No way.
No, not at that moment.
Mm-mm. Why am I bringing this up? Because I don't care what your title is. I don't care how many churches you've planted, set up. Any moment, you could be Kepha. And Kepha did it 3 times in one night. So that's 3 different times he was not a son of the Most High. He was not a child of God. He was just an offspring. He did not do the will of the Father. He denied the Savior according to prophecy. Messiah knew his heart, knew his timidities, and knew his fears, and knew the things that would bother him, and said, son, before the cock crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. He told him in prophecy months before, Simon, Simon, Satan desires to have you that he might sift you like wheat. But I prayed for you that your faith fail not, that eventually the words I give you will finally show up. Because the words he used in the hours after the Garden of Gethsemane, were those words the words of the Father? Were those words the words that Messiah had been teaching him for 3.5 years? Come on, y'all.
No.
Mm-mm.
Not at all.
I caught myself this week saying some things in theory and in concept and entertaining a conversation with someone as to not defend them. And then I realized these ain't the words of what Messiah would say. And I repented for even considering these ideas. And we don't realize how simple and easy it is to be in and out of the will of the Father. And you think because you anointed that you can't be a dirty vessel. See, the anointing rests on the vessel. It's not in the vessel. The anointing and the shining and the polishing of that particular cup means this is one that is preferred to be used in this season, at this time, for this type of an event. Don't mean that just because that anointing is on that cup, that the cup couldn't be dirty. And not worthy to be used, though selected. Okay, that was actually very good. I don't know why nobody's like saying amen or nothing like that. Maybe I'll just read it. I don't know. But the point is,
No, it was really good. Like, you made me think. And I love the fact that, you put it out there in that sense, because I never thought of it that way. But like you said, the cup doesn't, just because what he did doesn't mean anything, but it's just the cup itself could be dirty. And I love that point and reference how you made it like that, because that's a good way of looking at it. Because we never think that. Is it us? Or we always question, is it us that's not following the will of God? Or is it the people that we hang around with? Or it's even simple as what we accept in our lives. And you're breaking it down to a sense of where it broadens the people's horizons of, it can't just be you. It could be other things in life that's tainted or that you need to remove yourself from. So that was very good how you brought that. I never thought of it that way. So thank you.
Yeah, we be praised. And that's what happens in slow reads and slow cooks, which is what Sabbath endorses and promotes. But one of the things, too, I want us to be very clear about is that the anointing is a smearing on of the vessel, meaning that Yahweh will use it. It is preferred to be used. Doesn't mean it's not always dirty. It's not always clean. It has been selected to be used. But it could come a time when those said to be selected, it's still not clean. It hasn't self-cleansed itself. It's not worthy to be used. And it's left with the anointing on it. We'll talk about that another day. So when we talk here, or we read here, that Yahweh gave a day called Shabbat for humanity to understand his words. How many of you can get this when I say this? Now are you cleansed by the washing of the water, which is the word of Elohim. We have to get to a point where we realize we must be intentional about staying in the word, because we will get dirty, like the sister just said, to a degree, just by our associations in the world. You ever, I'm one, I shower. I just like to stay clean, right? I'll shower before I go to bed, and then I'll wake up and I'll shower. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like I've collected dirt. I just do, right? And though we're very clean, I'll shower in the morning. If I can shower midday, I'll do it. Because while I'm in the world, I'm rubbing up against things. Dust is everywhere. Dirt is flying. You're breathing it in. That's why you have hair in your nose, hair in your ears, to actually filter the dirt. Do you know how deep that is? And though you have estheticians removing these hairs, we are going against the engineer of Elohim because of our version of beauty. I know that seems off pace, but has anybody thought about that?
No.
Yahweh put hair follicles in our ear and in our noses to filter what we can't see invading areas of importance. And because we have a perceived ideal of beauty, we go against his certified engineered plan for the preservation of our body. I had to catch myself when I was plucking and tweezing and having the barbers, do what they say. Oh, yeah, you get this hair out your ears. I'm like, okay. But I really started to think about that. Yahweh engineered us that way on purpose. I think he knew something. When you and I suck in air, there comes dust. There comes particles. There comes flesh from the person next to you that is dried skin. And if a good breeze blow and you should inhale at the same time, that person is being consumed by you. I'm sorry.
Never thought about it like that.
It's something that we don't consider. And so as you get older, your ear hair, it grows, your nose hair, it grows, because they are your hair is filters for a lot of things. The hair on top of your head is a filter to keep the UV rays of the sun from hitting you as hard. The hair under your arms is designed to keep you from chafing because of the fact that you have sweat and they grow there. There's a reason you have armpit hair. Though we don't like it, in the name of human perceived beauty, it has purpose in its placement. All right, that's our beauty tip for today. Let's move on. Not funny? No? I thought it was hilarious.
No, it is.
I actually laughed. That's what I want to do. I can't laugh when you said that.
Yeah, I laughed and wanted to say thank
Enough
you.
of the beauty tips. Moving on.
Yeah, right. See how our religious perception of beauty is really, we get offended. Like, no, I'm tweezing my nose. I'm tweezing my ears. There would not be. So, but it's true. I mean, it's really true. And no disrespect, last beauty tip, I gotta hit on it for humor, if not anything else. You know your eyebrows are on your head for a reason. I'm moving
What
on.
is that reason?
It's a filter. You got stuff coming at your eyes. You got eyelashes for a reason. Every time you flash, those eyelashes catch and stop stuff from going right into your eye. Wow. Now we live in a less dusty environment today because of our engineering for residing in communities. But yeah, we're augmenting and decertifying his certified engineering of his creation because of our preconceived idea of beauty. All right, let's get back to the Bible. How we get to the Torah? So in Bereshit, and Yeshua letting us know that my mother and my father are them that do the will of the Father. We brought in Peter, we brought in Kepha to indict that Kepha, those 3 times he denied Messiah, he was not a son of God. He was a creation. He is, as we know, an apostle in the Bible today. But Messiah prophesied, bro, you're gonna deny me. You're going to deny me. I'm never denying you. I'm Peter. I'm a man's man. I ain't scared of nobody. But when that mob grabbed Messiah up and then Messiah checked him for cutting that guy's ear off and let him know, I'm not fighting with you. This is not our fight. This is not how we fight. And Peter's like, okay, well, if you're not going to fight with me, I don't even know what to do. He's like in shock. And then they get there talking about, hey, you one of them ones too. Ain't you one of them ones that was with him? Wasn't you one of them guys? I think that's him. That's him right there. Yep. Because he gave me some fish that day. We was over there at that place and they was passing out fish and biscuits. Yeah, that was him. I know that was him. He gave me the hot sauce too. Yeah, that was him. That was him. That wasn't me. Censor. Bad mouth word. Now he's trying not to act like who he had been. Let me ask y'all a question. And I'm hoping you guys will join me in this conversation. Was Peter saved in that moment? Any of those 3 moments he denied Messiah?
No. Oh, no.
It hit different, don't it?
Yes.
It really hits different. Okay. Facebook talking to me.
I would say no as well.
Yeah, you have.
So.
I gotta agree with you. I think that's why Messiah told him months earlier. He says, Simon, Simon, Satan has desired to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But when you are converted, strengthen your brother. When you have fallen from grace, when you have fallen from faith, and you've gotten back up on your feet, I want you to strengthen your brothers. So when they go through those moments where they have to check themselves and see if they too are willing to stay in alignment, and then the guilt hits them like it hit you, you can comfort them. Now we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. You can tell them, guys, I ate with Messiah for 3.5 years and I failed him. Okay. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just saying Elohim is merciful, and therefore, don't beat yourself up. If you're still alive, let's just repent for sin, get back into his word, and let his word guide our steps. I made the mistake of thinking, I freaked out. I panicked. I did what I knew to do. I went into self-preservation mode. And I denied the purpose for why I existed in this moment in life that will affect the world forever. And see, until we start making the storylines and the records of people's lives in the Bible practical and understand the cultural elements of that, we oftentimes gyp ourselves out of the way we should live in the earth, because we think that Peter didn't. We think that the apostles never sinned. I mean, Judas betrayed him. He lived with him for 3.5 years. Judas betrayed the Savior. Oh, it was prophesied. It was a part of the prophecy. Yeah, so was Peter's issue. Paul loved Elohim. He just was fighting the wrong. He was just fighting in the wrong part of the war. James, Matthew, these guys are fighting amongst each other. There are moments when you don't obey the word of Elohim. That's why it's important to make sure you keep the word of Elohim constantly in your hearing for the purpose of knowing practically how to operate in this world, which is very diverse. How do I operate in this world? By your word, when sometimes the world gives me a real big argument that I can get away with what the world says and be okay with you. And Yahweh's like, no, it don't work that way. And so he gives us Messiah to show us how to walk in this world by the words that made the world. So let's talk about how to Shabbat, the significance of how to Shabbat. Everybody, let's look at this real quick. Okay, so we're done with Matthew. Thanks for letting me have fun with you guys and go over there into that vein. But back to Psalms chapter 133. If you all are there, Psalms chapter 133. When we come together like this, guys, or not just here with me, but when you do, when Yahweh says this in verse 1, he says, how good and pleasant it is for brethren. Brethren, again, is that word for achi, achi, ak. It means brother. In the widest sense, it means one who has resemblance of its father, resemblance of its creator. Kindred. Kindred spirit. Understanding what is being done. What is it that we're supposed to be doing? They who do the will of the Father, that's my mother, that's my brother, that's my sister. That's what Messiah said. So again, he says, when we dwell together in unity, oh, how good and oh, how pleasant that is. Verse 2 says, this is King David writing Psalms 133. So King David says, it's like the precious ointment that was upon the head and ran down upon the beard, even of the high priest of the Baal Kohanim, Aaron, and his beard. That went also down to the skirts of his garments. That represents the children of Israel under the high priest and that whole order, that whole image. Verse 3 says, this is important. As the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descends upon the mountains of Zion. For there, Yahweh, the I am that I am, commanded the blessing. Now listen, look at verse 3, part B. Look at verse 3, part B. Psalms 133, 3b. Listen. For there, where? Where is there? Oh, back to verse 1. In unity. There is unity. So when you and I come together, y'all get ready, get your hearts are going to probably overflow right here real quick. This should be really good for everybody. Listen. When you are in unity, coming together as a people, one mind, for one purpose, serving the one true and living Elohim, and to keep his commandment. When you come for that purpose, you don't go to church to antagonize, you don't go to a meeting to buck against whatever's being done there. In unity, especially if it's about Elohim's word and his commandments, in unity, like that, verse 3, part B, there Yahweh commanded blessing. Now, that word blessing, as you all know, is the word barakah. That's where he liberally causes prosperity by implication and blessings and creates pools of blessings for you. It is there when we are in unity, like right now. I need about as many of y'all who sort of kind of really want to know this to say, I'm here in unity for his word. Just say it. Just say, I'm here in unity for his word. I'm here in unity for his word. Come on, make that your decree. You, even if you don't come off a mic, make it your decree. If you don't type it in, just speak it into your atmosphere. Say, I am here in Sabbath for unity for his word. I am here in unity for his word. I hope y'all get this prophetic moment, because you might not think, we think we're just reading the Psalms. We're not. If you make that your decree, watch. He says that there Yahweh commanded the better call. And the way we've been reading this psalm for so long, oh, how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. We thought it was our church gathering. We thought it was our church holy convention and holy convocation, our churches, denominations, whatever it is. And they would say, oh, we're going to have a great time. Oh, how good and pleasant it is for the brethren to dwell together in unity. It's not your church event. It's not you bringing 7 churches together in the middle of the streets talking about we're going to have a crusade for evangelism. That's not the unity he's talking about. This is David. They didn't do that. What they did was every Moedim, when they would gather together by the command of Elohim, they came because of Devarim 16:16. They came because of Leviticus 23. They came because of what he says with the Shabbat. When you come and you dwell together in your personal family, in your home, because I said, gather on the 7th day, I command blessings over you. Oh, in addition to the blessings for the world, I also see you as your name in the Lamb's Book of Life. Even life evermore. Did y'all realize there's two blessings in that verse? For there Yahweh commanded the better call and even life evermore. So he is blessing you naturally and securing you spiritually. Can somebody say that's salvation?
That's salvation.
I did say somebody. I at least got that.
That's salvation.
So when we really begin to put ourselves in mind of obedience to his instructions, we start to see that half the stuff we've been doing is like weird based on what his instructions are. And just because we do what we do our own way, it's the same as when we decertify the engineering of the human body because of our perception of beauty. Well, all righty then. Our church is a beautiful thing, but we took out the things that he engineered to make it work because it wouldn't make us look beautiful. And then beauty was redefined by the doctrine, the denomination, the preferences that we see. Here's the problem with what we see. Can anybody tell me what the problem is with what we see? Just using the Bible to do that. If you've been in this ministry long enough, you hear me quote this all the time. Anybody know how our thoughts and his thoughts are connected? What is the problem with what we see and how we see things? I'm sorry? Well, let me do this so we don't have dead air. Our thoughts are not like his thoughts. Our ways are not like his ways. As far as the heavens are from the earth, so are his thoughts from ours. This is why you need to be constantly in Shabbat and reminding yourself for 24 hours of his words. His words don't change. But as I taught you guys a few weeks ago, words are powerful. We have dictionaries for English, for whatever languages you are a part of by your ethnicity and your culture. And then the words that are used in our languages and the linguistics that we are involved in, they can be changed. Words can exist, and then we can cause a word to expire, and then we replace that word with another word. Yahweh doesn't do that. His word is the same today, yesterday, and it will be the same way tomorrow. Our language can change the meaning of a word, repurpose it in a minute. All right, y'all. I feel like y'all looking at me like I'm weird. Let me just give an example. In the English language, no disrespect to any other language, it's just the one I know the best next to Hebrew. But in the English language, we have a word. When I grew up 6 decades ago, the word was bad. Bad was a negative connotation. In the 80s, I was born in the 60s. In the 80s, bad became a positive connotation. Same 3 letters, B-A-D, bad. Bad was negative. Bad was dark. Bad was not preferred. Bad is not what you want to be. And then suddenly in the 80s, bad is what you want it to be. Bad, it was a good thing. Bad was bad. See how we change words? His don't change like we do in our Webster's dictionary. His don't change like we do in our Oxford and our Cambridge dictionaries. His doesn't change the way we do with our historians trying to give us idioms and defines and all of those things. It doesn't. His word stays the same. The problem is we don't sit in Sabbath to learn his words. We go to theology class to talk about what we think his words might mean. And Yahweh's like, why are you doing that? Just come talk to me. Sit down with my word and let me talk to you. So Sabbath is a very important thing. So why do we Sabbath? How do we Shabbat? Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. Let's talk about it from the beginning. Whether you realize it or not, we already did. And I'm just going to make sure we reiterate it so we all have a very clear understanding of what Yahweh intended off rip. Genesis chapter 2. The heavens and the earth were finished. All the host of them. Days 1 through 5. Day 6 specifically. The end of day 6, he made man. And in making of man, at the end of day 6, he says, the week is complete. Everything that I need done on this third rock from the sun is encapsulated in that time. I got a man to till the ground. I got a manager now. And then he says, manager, come meet me in my office. Day 7 is Yahweh's office. Day 7. Did y'all know that day 7 was connected to Psalms 91? Does anybody want to expound on that or like to talk about that and put that on the platform with us? All right. I'll do it. Psalms 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of El Shaddai. Anybody want to take a gander at what the secret place is?
Sabbath day.
Okay. Anybody else? I don't know who that was, but I'll take that answer. When you come off mic, say your name real quick so I can come back to you. So one says Sabbath. Okay. Okay. Simone says Shabbat is the secret place. Okay, I hear you. Anybody else? I see you, Nadi. Nadi says Shabbat as well. Clubhouse, you guys can come off mic and say your name. I can't.
Keisha, say Shabbat as well.
You're going to say Shabbat as well. Okay, so we at least got 4 that say Shabbat. We have to concur. Someone try to say something?
Peacock.
Peacock, hey, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. It's to lead.
Okay, and that's where I was going to go to. So you have 2 things that are a secret place. One of them is when you enter into your closet, he that sees in secret shall reward you openly. This is what Messiah said, and we called it the prayer place. So now we got movies and doctrines and books about making your spare closet into a prayer room. I have no problem with you doing that, but understand that's not what he was talking about. When you enter into your prayer closet and you shut the door, it is your talit. Your talit is used quite frequently in the custom of Messiah's dialogue in the Shabbat. And the Shabbat is the secret place. How do we know? Let's just keep reading. Genesis chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, all the host of them. And on the 7th day, Elohim ended his work which he had made. He rested on the 7th day from all of his work which he had made. Elohim baruch the 7th day. Elohim sanctified. That word there means kodeshed. He kodeshed that day because that in that day, that's the secret day, he rested from all of his work which he, Elohim, created and made. So the only day that Yahweh named was the 7th day, and he named it the Sabbath. You can also call it the Shabbat. The beauty about that is that it is the day he took man and brought him into conversation with him. So that man who he made to fulfill a job would know his instructions and what needed to be done. Okay, Evie Ray, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry, Evie, but I'm with you. Evie Ray says she was talking about the talit. So the talit is a secret place, but the secret place is the Shabbat. And the two sort of kind of go together. Well, not sort of kind of, they go together. All right. Now, let's move past Psalms 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High dwells. When you come into Shabbat, you dwell here. When we dwell together, Psalms 133, in unity, they were talking about a high holy day, Moedim. In the context of the Moedim is the element of the weekly Sabbath that is a practice for the seasonal Sabbaths, which are, again, a microcosm of life and Yahweh's way of bringing us into rest. Because you're working now, but there's going to come in the 7,000th year, as we love to talk about, there's going to come the time that this world as we know it rests like eternally, and a new heaven and earth are rendered. And those who are in him will reign and rule with him in that capacity with no issue of sin. This world as we know it will melt away with a fervent heat. And I know we preach it, but I don't think we think about that. Just talking with some of my peers and colleagues, we preach it, but it's very shallow. We don't think about what he's actually going to do. And one of the byproducts of not thinking deeply about what he's going to do in the good old by and by, and how heaven will not be your home or my home. Heaven is not your home. Heaven is Elohim's home. And when this world is done away with, this world, the world to come is where you and I will be going if we're in Messiah. Can I give y'all something to consider? Sabbath does this to me. It just, all the stuff comes out of me. Can I give you something to consider, something to just mull over and ask Yahweh to give clarity on later? Would y'all mind? Is it too late?
I don't know.
I don't know who that was. I'm thinking that was that Valerie? Was that Evangelist Peacock?
Amen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Can I give y'all something just to consider? Seriously?
Yes, Apostle.
All right. 2 people said yes.
Yes.
All right. Listen. Listen to this. All right. Thank you, Yahweh. Everybody go to Ephesians chapter number 1. Everybody go to Ephesians chapter number 1. Everybody go to Ephesians chapter number 1. Come on, let's go. Ephesians 1. When y'all get there, say unity. Ephesians 1, verse number 18. Ephesians 1:18. All right. Ephesians 1:18. I'm going to say unity for y'all. Okay, I got 2 people say unity on Facebook. All right. Verse 18 says, verse 17, that the God, that Elohim of Yeshua HaMashiach, Yahweh of glory, may give you the spirit of wisdom and the spirit of revelation in the knowledge of him. Verse 18, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling and what the riches of the glory of his inheritance is in the saints. Verse 19, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who believe? Because all of us don't believe. According to the working of his mighty power, which of course he worked out in the life of Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, when he raised him from the dead, and he then set Yeshua, the Mashiach, in the right hand in heavenly places. Now let me repeat verse number 20 because you think I read it wrong. Watch. Which he wrought, he worked in Messiah when he raised Messiah from the dead and set him at his own right hand in heavenly places. Verse 21, those heavenly places are far above all principality and power and might and dominion, and watch this, every name that is named. Can y'all read this next part with me? Comma, not only in this world, but also in that world which is to come. I'm just reading. I'm just reading the Bible. I'm just reading it. So when you understand eschatology within Christendom, even at its most shallow peak, we all preach, many do, the majority do, a rapture or a going away with the Father, right? Some don't believe in that. Some think that, you're already living your heaven and your hell. But I want y'all to catch this. Look at what he says in verse 21. He says, that place that Messiah now sits in is above principality, power, might, dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this world. We're talking about this world, right? We're talking about this world, right? We're talking about this world. This world we're in, right?
Amen.
Okay. Now, there's a great guy that we talked about earlier today. His name is Kepha. He was the one who was cursing and cussing, denying Messiah at the time of crucifixion. Remember him? Well, once he got converted, once he got saved, like Minister Wanda said, once I got for real saved, once Peter got for real saved, Peter started writing some of his memoirs. Peter made an epistle. He made a couple. In one of those epistles, Peter made mention that by revelation of Yeshua HaMashiach and the spirit of wisdom that now is upon him, because he got converted, faith did not fail him. Kepha realizes that this earth we're on presently will melt away with a fervent heat. That means the world as we know it is going to be gone. But there will be, as Miss Evans is trying to state inside of our Facebook chat, and she says, is this referencing the New Jerusalem? The New Jerusalem? Yeah, it is. Because that Jerusalem, capital, city, capital of the world, will have its actual king sitting on the throne, and those of us who made it into glory with him come back and live and reign and rule on that new earth, because this earth and all the hell and all the lack of keeping the word of Elohim will be perished and be burnt away. It will melt with a fervent heat. So this world, he is over, and that world that is to come, clearly he will be over. So are we going to heaven? Or are we going to be occupying the new world?
The new world.
We preach eschatology because it sounds good. I don't think we're paying attention to how good it's really going to be. And we're telling everybody and selling everybody, we're going to good old by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, that's when all the saints of God be gathered home. We won't be in heaven. We'll be in heaven if you, let's just say, do I have permission to talk for about 3 minutes about eschatology? I know we're talking Shabbat, but can I get 3 minutes? Can I get permission for 3 minutes to talk about eschatology?
Please do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In eschatology 101, and you have this to consider. You have in eschatology, which are the things to come. For those who believe in the rapture, if you don't believe in the rapture, this don't apply to you. Okay. But if you believe in the rapture, and I firmly do, whether I live to see it or die before it, If I die before the rapture, heaven is where you go if you die in righteousness. If you do not die in righteousness, then you go to what's known as Hades, hell. So if you die prior to the rapture, in righteousness, you go to heaven. Unrighteousness, you go to hell. You wait there in heaven or in hell until the rapture takes place. When the rapture takes place, everybody who is raptured out, their bodies will be changed. The bodies of the souls who are presently in heaven will be the dirt gathering into the air, and their bodies will come back to their souls. Y'all need to catch that. Don't forget that. Because now you will be changed into whatever image he is in, right? So you're now caught up together to meet him in the air and will forever be with him. But watch this. We go to heaven and you're there, according to eschatology, for 7 years. Because from the time of the rapture, there will be 3.5 years of tribulation, in which period we believe that the temple at Jerusalem that Yahweh gave David and Solomon permission to build, though it was conquered in 70 AD, and then later again we see it's conquered, and now there's a mosque at the Temple Mount. We believe that the temple will be rebuilt in that period of time, in those 3 years of tribulation. 3.5 years of tribulation. And then once the temple is completed, there's going to be the dedication of that temple. But those 3.5 years will be years that start off in chaos because of the rapture. And then there will be an anti-Messiah that will rise up operating in a false peace. That false peace will actually attract even Judaism and the Jewish nations in Jerusalem to work with this entity, which is anti-Messiah. They won't know it until the scales fall off eyes, and the religions of the world will unify, because this unique phenomenon had took place and left them people missing. The earth is in chaos, and something will bring peace, a false peace. In that, they will, for effort of unifying religions, all come together to dedicate the newly built legendary historical temple of Solomon, just to bring hope that faith systems can work together. And in that, they will dedicate that building. The day they dedicate that building, the anti-Messiah will lead that ceremony. It will be the officiant to that ceremony. It will be then when the anti-Messiah crosses the threshold of the temple of Elohim that Israel's eyes will then be open. And they will realize, this guy ain't what we need to be following. And Matthew 25 kicks in. They run to Petra. All right, so you get that part. So you have 3.5 years of tribulation. Once he crosses that threshold, there will be 3.5 years additionally of great tribulation. That's when the books of Revelation, the plagues, the 7 plagues, the 7 vials, the 7 veils, the 7 bowls, 7 trumpets, all of those that are in Revelations fall on the earth. That's where you get your pale horse, your red horse, your white horse, right? All of that's in that combination. Those 7 years are the 7 years of tribulation. At the end of the 7 years of tribulation, remember, 3.5 years of regular tribulation, 3.5 years of the great tribulation, they make 7 total. Those 7 years are over. Then you have the Battle of Armageddon. The Battle of Armageddon will convene. Messiah will come on a horse, vesture dipped in blood, We who were raptured with him, who died before the rapture in righteousness, will be on a cloud behind him, following him as he fights the armies set against Jerusalem, and then has the birds clean up the mess from the war he wins. Then he sits on the throne of Jerusalem, and the world and their military mights and all the dynamics will literally be subject to him sitting on that throne. We, coming back with him, will now be the new world government. We will be kings, queens, lords. Messiah is reigning, and the rest of the world will be subject to his reign. Problem is, the people who didn't make the rapture are who we're ruling over. They've already been condemned. So now, right now, when he takes on his millennial reign, it happens right after the Battle of Armageddon. We then go into a 1,000-year, i.e., millennial reign. It'll be those who died and made the rapture in righteousness, and those who did not make the rapture in righteousness, occupying this third world, from this third rock from the sun. Once that 1,000-year reign happens, Yahweh will allow for Satan to actually operate in the earth again, because he won't be functioning then. He'll be functioning again after a 1,000-year reign. And then people will think that are, not in righteousness, that they can start a coup again. Yahweh will permit it. And then this world, as we know it, will be judged. He will take Satan and the angels that are held in chains under darkness, throw them into the lake of fire. He will then take hell and all the souls in hell, throw them into the lake of fire. He will then take the souls that did not make the rapture and are occupying the present earth and the earth, and throw it into the lake of fire. It will melt away with a fervent heat. And then those in righteousness reigning with Messiah will then occupy the new Jerusalem on the new world that will come down. So we're not going to be in heaven, guys. We're going to be on a new world. Verse 21, far above principality, power, might, dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this world, but also in that which is to come. I took 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Hope you don't think I lied. But I want y'all to consider that. I think I put y'all to sleep, didn't I? I'm sorry, guys. There's so much information in my head I want to share with y'all. I end up talking too much. I heard myself today on program. I was like, he talks too much. So I'm going to read now. Let's go back to the word. Did y'all learn anything on that? Miss Evans' question says, Apostle, where do you think we are right now? She says, do you think we're close to tribulation? We are absolutely as close as we're going to be to tribulation. I really thought when the trumpet sounded in Sukkah, I was hoping it was it. I ain't gonna lie. I know for a fact we don't have any other prophecies that need to happen except for the building of the temple again. Israel has the olive tree and its branches and its leaves have already been born. Israel was a nation. 48, that's 80 years. That fig tree is full blossom now. We are with no more prophecies needed to be fulfilled at this point. Matthew 24 took place, especially in the US of A, which is supposed to be a dominant nation on the planet. And its influences all over the world, which are Babylonian steeped, great whorish steeped. It's a mentality. It's a spirit. And all of the cohorts of all the other nations and their immorality and perversions that we all are partakers of. But we don't have any of the prophecies that need to take place before the rapture does. We did before Israel fulfilled the portion of its years. And now that's fulfilled. The temple's the only thing left that's to be built, and they are prepared. Here's the catch, y'all. we live in vacuums sometimes, but when you ever get free of the vacuum that you were forced into and you live in, and you find out other information of cultures that you had not considered and thought it was cute, didn't realize it's significant to prophecy, Israel, in a myriad of ways, is well prepared to rebuild the Temple of Solomon. They have all that they need to do it. They're just waiting to get the mount back. I don't think they're going to get that mount back from Islam unless there is an act of Elohim. And the only conceivable act that myself and many of my study groups and colleagues in faith and rabbis think about who are messianic, the only conceivable act of Elohim that could produce what would be necessary to get that mosque, that big old golden dome you guys see on your postcards when you go to Jerusalem and Israel, y'all think that that's the temple. It's not the temple, that's a mosque. That mosque sits there because in the last battle that Islam, Christendom, and Udeya had, Islam won that war, and they desecrated the temple. And then, as was the nature of what they do and the nature of what gets done whenever they have these holy wars, they decimate your shrine to your Elohim, and then they make on that very spot a shrine to their God, so that you know we defeated not only your army, but your God too. Now, I am not trying to start any kind of a war or problem or issue. I'm just speaking on history, culture of multiple cultures that have clashed. America's God is capitalism, mammon, and an extreme group from Ishmael on September 11th attacked that God in America. They were called the Twin Towers. That was the church of the God of America. The God of America is capitalism. That God is mammon. This extremist group of another faith system attacked. We deemed it a terrorist attack. I think it was well stated. However, in true form, to though an extreme group of a group, the core of the group, once they conquer a region, they take over, as I showed you, your faith and your shrines to let you know our God beat your God. So when the World Trade Centers came down, the Church of Mammon, the offer from the group that was not a part of the extreme group, a part of its group that did it, took opportunity because of the core value of the group to say, let us put a mosque there to show unity. Now, fortunately, we had enough theologians to understand the holy wars and the nature of them and how they operated, that particular request did not get granted. Otherwise, you'd have a mosque at ground zero. That's some trivia for Christians. Just to know. Can we get back to the word? I want to stay Torah. Did anybody find that interesting?
Yes, I did.
Was that elder facing?
Yes, sir.
Yay! Shabbat shalom. Miss hearing your voice. Need to hear it more frequently. All right. Okay. So y'all just learned something today. Now, this is why it's important for you and I to understand when Yahweh gives us days, he wants us to take those days to get to know him. And this is why we Shabbat. In the Shabbat, in the Sabbath, our focus is to only know him and his words. I brought you to Ephesians chapter 1 to remind you that Messiah, who sits in the right hand of the Father, making intercession for us, is coming back for those who do the will of the Father, so that when he is set up to reign on the new world, we are reigning with him, living with him. That world will not be heaven. So just consider that. And that makes people mad when you do that. I don't mean to do that. I don't mean to make people mad. Because we've been taught, oh, I want to go to heaven and just walk around heaven all day. You know, I'm gonna have my mansion in heaven. No, you will not have a mansion in heaven. Sorry. You can have a mansion on the new world, the new earth. But yeah, it won't be in heaven. He said, I'm going away to prepare a place for you. Okay, I gotta do it. Can I do it? Y'all gonna let me do it? Can I do it? I'm gonna go away to prepare a place for you. Okay, go back to Ephesians chapter 1. Look at verse 20. Can I get a volunteer to read it? Because I guess if I keep reading it, y'all gonna think I'm really trying to push a point. Anybody want to read verse 21 for me? 22, 20. Anybody want to read verse 20 for me? All right. Verse 20 says, all right, I'm going to read verse 19. And what is the exceeding greatness of his power towards us who believe in him? According to the working of Elohim's mighty power, which he demonstrated in the life of Messiah. The same Messiah he rose from the dead and set that Messiah in his own right hand, Elohim's own right hand. Who knows what Elohim's own right hand is? So Elohim's own right hand is the Son of Elohim. The Son of Elohim is the Word of Elohim. So he sets Messiah in his right hand. But we need to pay attention to this part. He set him in his right hand in heavenly places, far above all principality, power, might, dominion, every single solitary name that is named, not only in this world, but in that world which is to come. So when he says he goes away to prepare a place for you, places must be incorporated because we don't know what place it is. It does not say heaven. It says heavenly places. And I'm going to get off of that. So let's get back to how to Shabbat. So in Isaiah chapter number 58, 13 through 14, we read that you are to not do your own thing, not speak your own words, and we paraphrase. And in doing that, honoring Elohim, Let's read it. Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58. Let's just do that so we'll just run through this and finish it because I think everybody's going to bed. Everybody's going to sleep. Isaiah 58, and then we'll come back in the morning and we'll study some more. I do have an interesting subject for tomorrow. I'd like to open up. I hope you guys would join me in it. Isaiah 58, verse 13-14 says, if you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, the seventh day, from doing your pleasure, my thoughts are not like your thoughts, my ways are not like your ways, as far as the heavens are from the earth, or my thoughts from yours. So verse 13, if you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, says Yahweh, and if you will call the Shabbat a delight, if you will call the Shabbat holy of Yahweh, if you will call the Shabbat honorable, and if you will honor Elohim by not doing your own ways, nor finding your own words, your own pleasures, nor speaking your own words, then shall you be found as delighting yourself in Yahweh. And Yahweh says, I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth. And Yahweh says, I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob, your forefather. For the mouth of Yahweh Sabbath had spoken it. Now, this is how you literally Shabbat in the day of Sabbath. Any Sabbath, really. But specifically for the seventh day Sabbath, you want to make sure every Sabbath that you're reading his word, or at least meditating on the Torah and how it affects life. For you and I today, for those who have left testimony in the Bible because they obeyed or disobeyed the Torah, what that looked like, and to be able to perceive their disobedience and their obedience and then compare it to our own lives. That's that ponder. That's that Selah. That's that Selah. Yahweh, your word said X. They did Z. They did X. The ones who did X because your word is X, they got this. Those who did Z and your word said X, they got that. Where do I lie in that? And I can see if I don't do X and I do Z, I'm going to get what the Z group got. And that's what coming into Shabbat, to sit yourself down, and though you in your mind have a plan you find viable, does it measure the plan of the greatest engineer ever, who engineered life for you? To know how he engineered life, to know his predestination for your life, requires a simple task of sitting with him in his day he has sanctioned, to speak only his words and not our own scientific discoveries, but to actually put his word in our heart. Then those scientific discoveries start to make sense. But right now we live in a world that takes the scientific discoveries because of our intellect that does make many inquiries. And then the science we discover, we sort of kind of make God. And that's where the conflict comes in at. And Yahweh wants to remind us, anything that you discover in this earth, my word made. So learn my word, so when you uncover or discover anything in the earth my word made, you will know how to use it to benefit your walk in this world. Now, I know many of you won't catch that unless you catch this on the replay, but I hope that helped you. Now, look at this next piece. In Sabbath, Isaiah lets us know, and Isaiah is a prophet of Elohim. He's not some false prophet. He is a prophet who only exhorts what the Torah states. He admonishes those who were of Israel though divided by civil war, he still admonishes those that the Torah was given to go back to a life of Torah and sharing with them your Sabbath and Yom Kippur and Sukkah and Shavuot and Pesach. These high holy days are to be done this way. And when you do it this way, the success in life you want, Yahweh will be your chauffeur. He will be the Lord of your harvest. He will feed you with the heritage of Jacob. He will cause you to ride in the high places of the earth. He will make you rub shoulders with what you deem are you'll be able to hobnob with the big dogs, as it say. He'll put you there and they won't even know how you got there. You may not even have the credentials, the pedigree, the matriculation of education that would justify you being in this sphere at all. But Yahweh, because you honor him and you learn his words, will place you in those places and spaces, and it'll be no sweat off of you. And you didn't have to kiss anybody's ring, bow down and kiss anybody's shoe, pick up and scoop up behind anybody, just dumping all over you to serve you, or you serve them. Yahweh will place you in positions that your purpose in life can get the maximum, not only exposure, but effectively complete the purpose for why you exist in the earth. It's really not just some hocus pocus. There is a real plan, and we all fail. We all fall short. We all fall short of his glory because we oftentimes let our intellect override his word. And a way that happens frequently is when we infrequently come into Sabbath with the intentions of learning his word. Or we purposefully go to church to be preached at, rather than to reach into his word so he can direct us. That's an indictment we don't like, but we really have to live with it. And if I hadn't experienced it over these last few years, I promise you I wouldn't be sitting here taking time to talk about it. Let's go deeper into why we know this is true from Elohim's viewpoint. So Isaiah, a prophet of Elohim, tells us that we are to speak his words, not do our own pleasures, not do our own thing on the Sabbath. And then he sees us delighting in him, and he will do X and so. He then tells us in Exodus chapter number 20, if we'll just go there very quickly, in Exodus chapter number 20, what keeping Sabbath is also about. Matter of fact, it's really sort of kind of weird, like good weird. He says in verse 20, Exodus 20, watch this. He gives us what we call here the commandments, right? We've always come to Exodus 20 and another few places in the Torah to explain the condensed version of his Torah. So we've taken 613 instructions and we've surmised them into 10 and then took those when Messiah gets here and he sort of kind of surmised them into 2. But let's talk about the 10 first. So in Shemot, Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, it says, and Elohim spake all these words to Israel, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Then he goes on to give them the commandments that we like to call the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Verse 4, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters under the earth. Don't do it. Verse 5, thou shalt not bow down to these images or these gods, nor serve them, for I, Yahweh, am El Kanu. I am the jealous God. I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children that they have until the third and fourth generation, especially of them that hate me. And I will show mercy unto thousands of them that love me and them that keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold that person guiltless that takes his name in vain. So I want to make sure y'all understand that taking the name of the Lord in vain, taking the name of Yahweh in vain is not this disrespectful statement that people make, this disrespectful appropriation that people make, but it is not saying Jesus H. Christ. It is not saying Jesus Christ. That's not the taking of his name in vain. That's not the name he was talking about. Verse 7, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh in any of his attributes. He is your Elohim. Don't take the name of Yahweh in vain. For Yahweh will not hold that person guiltless that takes his name in vain. So that's the third commandment. Here's the fourth commandment that Yahweh gave of the 10. Remember the Shabbat and keep it holy. Remember the Shabbat and keep it holy. He then gives his dissertation on how that's done. He says, 6 days shall you labor. That's a command. And do all of your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In that day, you do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, your maidservant, your cattle, your stranger that is within your gates. See, for in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth. Well, you know that from Bereshit chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1 and 2, right? He says, for in 6 days he made the heavens and the earth and the seas and all that in them is, and then he rested on the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh, that word blessed, Yahweh baraked that day, meaning he blessed that day. He put bountiful sufficiencies in that day. He called it the Shabbat. He calls it the Sabbath, and then he hallowed it. Now, when he hallows it, that means he kodeshed it. He did not kodesh, he did not hallow any other day except the seventh day. He then, in kodeshing it, he cleaned it. He appointed in it. He consecrated that day. He dedicated that day to be holy. He dedicated that day, consecrated that day to be kept holier than any other day. It was a time where he could proclaim to you and I, purify you and I, prepare you and I to be made holy unto him, reset us in that day when we get offset in the 6 days of work. That seventh day resets us. That seventh day helps us, as many people need, to refocus. That seventh day, when we come to the Father, getting beat up in 6 days of work, he can help us to get our bearings when we lose our sense of direction. Just make it back to Shabbat, and Yahweh will make it all better. Get back to Shabbat. Get back to the drawing board. Get back to the purpose for why you live. Get back to the place where you can draw the information you need. If any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of Yahweh. The best place and time to do that is that secret place of Shabbat. Just get back to Shabbat, no matter how you got beat up, no matter how you got knocked around, no matter what the concussion protocol may be, because you banged your head and had your head banged and were pushed and were in accidents. Yahweh will get you back in order. Yahweh will help you through the word. He will heal your land. He sent his word to heal your land. The word he sent He actually gave you a day to focus on it. You know, I found it interesting in the concepts of the world that as a builder, I was talking to a resident builder, a home builder I was talking to. He had clients who loved him because he built cigar rooms in their house, places where they could go in and smoke in a cedar filled space. And then he also was noted for his wine cellars. They were unique, they were secure, they were safe, but they were special places. They were sanctuaries in a person's home of things that they treasured, wines and rolled up leaves to smoke, which you should smoke because it goes into your lungs. Anyway, I find it interesting that we are more honoring of a special place hollowed out for things like smoking and drinking of aged commodities, where we could sit down and in my days of being out there in the world, I've been in these cellars, I've been in these man caves, I've been in these cigar rooms, because I ain't been saved all my life. And we'd sit down, and the environment was conducive to take the smoke out the air, and the cedar on the walls, and the cedar wood, and the proper room temperature of the wines and the cognacs and everything that was there. And we would sit down there and incorporate some conversation, chess, a way to get away from the noise of the children and the other. And we would come in and sit there, maybe catch a game there, but we would sit there, and that space was consecrated to that. We are more inclined to do that in the natural than to take the seventh day, which the creator of the world hallowed out for the aged, constantly growing in value word of Elohim. We'd rather sit in some cedar wood, in some cellar room, for some wine we've aged maybe 100 years if it's true, some cigars we've aged and kept hydrated for maybe 35 years, and sit and embrace them and enjoy them in that hallowed place. Rather, even though what's true in the natural is first true in the spiritual, it blows my mind. It gives me that pondering moment to think that if we know to do that in the natural, and what's true in the natural is first true in the spiritual, we got that idea from Sabbath. Because this day is a day you would do in this hallowed place what they do in those places they've hallowed. Yahweh wants us to come in, put on our slippers, take off our clothes, our work clothes, cleanse ourselves, wash ourselves in his word, and sit down and enjoy the Ancient of Days. Enjoy the antiquity of the writ. Enjoy the floral, the bouquet. Enjoy the aroma of the word. Does that make sense to anybody but me? All right. So let me finish this. 6 days, he made heaven and earth. the seas, all them that are in them. He then rested on day 7. Wherefore he hallowed, he kodesh, that he proclaims in this day, when you rest with him, Yahweh has the ability by your openness and your vulnerability to him, your being vulnerable to him, to begin to proclaim in your life and to begin to appoint things and bid things and consecrate you and dedicate certain things to the functionality of you. Each of us in Sabbath, Yahweh deals specifically with at the same time. He is Yahweh Shema in one instance, but in the Sabbath, he becomes Yahweh Shalom. And when you understand the 13 attributes of Shalom, he is appointing those blessings on you. Peace and soundness of mind, harmony, peace that passes all understanding, welfare, soundness of mind, health, tranquility, harmony with what's going on around you. All of that is what's found. I don't know, but is it just me, or does anybody really wish that things could be more harmonic in your world, more tranquil in your world, more where we don't always feel like we're losing our mind because the situations that can hit you can really get to you and get your heart racing and have you having heart palpitations. Does anybody know what I mean? And the life and the lack of having finances, or the lack of having trust, or the lack of having people you can really rely on, or you being what you're supposed to be. All these things can really come at you and make you feel like you're losing your mind, and you're like, when is it ever going to change for me? When are things ever going to click? When are things ever going to, if it ain't, you know how we say, if it ain't one thing, it's another. When are these changes going to become less impacting on my life? Even though I'll expect the changes, I can deal with the changes better, and they not make me set back 15 years. When am I going to be able to deal with the loss of a loved one better? When am I going to deal with the loss of a business partner, a business idea, the death of an idea, the death of a marriage, the just death in general? When am I going to be able to deal with things without them making me feel like, in humor, Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. Now, if you're not from America, you won't understand that. That's a sitcom that we would watch, and it was sort of kind of legendary in our television, and it was from the Sanford and Son. And I shouldn't have used that quote, but we go through life, and the fields don't produce, and the banks are not conducive, and I just fixed the car, and now the house is broke. I just fixed the house. Now the job is closing. When does life become, for me, manageable, and it doesn't take me into the abyss of emotional trauma every other month? This is what Shabbat helps us with. Am I making sense to anybody?
Yes, sir.
The reality becomes we frequently try to make our own way, and Yahweh is like, I already made a way for you. Why are we recreating the wheel? And we recreate the wheel every time we skip Sabbath with Elohim and create our own prophetic encounter. I'm going to indict this. We create our own wheel when we skip Shabbat, we skip the Moedim and really comply with them. both with the sacrifice of ourselves and the sacrifice of our herds and our flocks and what we have. And then we go to make our own revival, our own time of intercessory prayer, which doesn't really make sense, but we come up with our own ways to draw God down into our world, the God of our understanding. And if you don't believe in God and you happen to be atheist and you catch this in reviews, it doesn't apply to you. But this is Sabbath worship for those who believe in Elohim, who believe in the God of our salvation, who believe in the God who gave us the person Yeshua HaMashiach that hung on a cross. We hung him high, stretched him wide. He hung his head. For me, he died. He's returning to receive us. This is what we believe. You don't believe it? That's fine. We do. But for those of us who believe that, just as the simplicity of the cross confounded the wise men of intellect and brings us salvation, so does the simplicity of sitting still in Sabbath for those who believe in he who hung on the cross brings us sustainability and balance and bearings so that we can be like Messiah, who was hit with devastating blows, allegations, inappropriate pursuits after him. And yet he was still tranquil. He was still having a peace that passed all understanding, and yet effective in carrying out his destiny in the earth. But it was the word that made him proficient in that. And I'm finding that the more I stay in his word, I become more proficient in the things that I have to do to take care of my natural surroundings. Sabbath resets you. So the fourth commandment of Elohim is to remember the Shabbat. It is on the seventh day. It is a command. It's not a suggestion. It's not something for the Jews. This is something for humanity. We know that because Yahweh gave the Torah to Israel to show the world, nation by nation, how to be reconciled with the Father. But we also know that this command for Shabbat was given to humanity because in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1 and 2, Yahweh makes that day for man, for humanity. Adam was not a Jew. Matter of fact, Adam wasn't even an Israeli. And Adam is Abraham's granddaddy. So the Shabbat had nothing to do with what we attribute to Judaism, or for that matter, Christianity. The Sabbath was given to humanity. Just like 8 hours of sleep are required for you to be a proper functioning human in the earth daily. Every week, you need to give him 24 hours. Every so many months, you need to give him the time that he's prescribed there. Just like the earth, we cry and we talk about, oh, the Shemitah year, oh, the year of Jubilee. Even the earth has to rest. There are times when he tells you, don't manufacture harvest. Don't do harvests for manufacturing, for business. Just let it grow. Let the earth rest. Let it do what it normally does. Let the bugs get into a normal cycle. Let the beavers and the gophers and the foxes and the deer and let all of their, don't touch the earth for a year. Whatever it yields, let it yield. You take it, you make it, you'll be good. Let the earth rest. Shabbat is about a cycle for the earth and we who are made from the earth. It's got nothing to do with your religion, though it should be a religious obligation, a religious responsibility. Yeah. Now, I also find that we have, again, made our substitutions and we've re-engineered based on our perspective and our perception and or ideology. We've not kept his days, and then we create days. Let me say it again. We've not kept his days where he promises visitation for you and I, his masterpiece, so he can touch us like the potter and the clay, like the inventor and the invention, like the creator and the created. We don't come to his asked for time, his appointed time, when he will to see you through, reset you, reinvigorate you, redirect you, rejuvenate you, re-strengthen you. And instead of coming to when he says and sets the appointment, we try to make our own appointment for him. And quite frankly, y'all, we are not the boss of God. We are not the boss of Elohim. You can't tell him, come down here and be a part of my program. Come down here and be a part of my revival. Come down here and see me in my room. Come into my room and heal me. We can't tell Elohim to what to do. Because we have a need. However, any need we have, he covers it if we keep the appointments he's made. But we don't keep the appointment he made. In that appointment, he knows what we're going to have need of days down the road. So he infuses that in that appointment time. And before you realize it, when you get hit with what destiny will bring your door, you are already prepared to get through it. But instead, you never kept the appointment or any other appointments. And now you are lacking in defense. Your immune system is not strong enough to ward off an attack, ward off a presentation, get you through a moment and experience. And now you're like, come get me, come help me. We can't tell Elohim what to do and where to go. You can't command him because you got a need and you never obeyed him. Just because you brag about God don't mean you know him. I had to learn that. Because every sermon I taught bragged about God, bragged about who he was. That's what we did. That's what you do in this thing of faith and religion. You brag about your God. My God better than your God. You bragged about him. I bragged about him, but I didn't know him. And just because you brag about him, don't mean you know him. How do we fix that? To know him is to love him. To love him is to know him. How do I get to know him? I honor him by coming in alignment with his commandment. So he tells us, come see me on the Sabbath. Come see me on the Moedim. Instead, we say, no, you come see us on our holy convocation. You come see us on our prophetic encounter night. It's going to be 4 days in June. Would you have the heavenly angels put you on the calendar to be there for that? Okay, because we need you there, God. All right, well, you're going to keep my Sabbath. I'm too busy. I got stuff to do. But you come to this, okay? And I promise you, we're going to make you happy. I mean, that's literally how we do. I want you to keep Shabbat. All right, Yahweh. So I'll keep Sabbath, and but I'm gonna keep it my way, okay? Because I gotta have a day to show off my hat and my polyester outfit and my suit and my shark skin suit and my gaiters. I need to show off and brag about you and look like you able. So we're gonna do that on the Sabbath. Well, I don't know, but in Exodus chapter 16, verse number 23, and I'll read down to verse 30. And he said unto them, this is that which Yahweh had said, that tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. So Exodus 16:23, y'all. So bake that which you will bake today, seethe that which you will seethe today, and that which remains over, lay that up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, just like Moshe bade. And it didn't stink, neither was there any worms in it. So Moshe said, eat that today, for today is the Shabbat unto Yahweh. Today, you're not going to find any coriander seed, any manna in the field. Verse 26 says, so 6 days they gather it. But on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in that day, you're not going to find any manna. Verse 27 says, and it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day to gather, and they found none. Verse 28, look at what Yahweh does. Yahweh said to Moshe, he said, how long do you people refuse to keep my commandments and my Torah? Verse 29, see, Yahweh gave you the Shabbat. Therefore, he gives you on day 6 enough bread for 2 days. See, the Shabbat is a gift to y'all. It's a gift to me. It's a gift to us. Verse 29, one more time. See, Yahweh has given you the Shabbat, the Sabbath. Therefore, because he knows what he wants of you on the Sabbath, he doesn't want you out in the field wasting time getting work done, taking up the time he wants to have with you. So he gives you on day 6 while you're working double, so that on day 7, you don't have to waste that amount of time trying to get food. Pardon me. Verse 29, part B says, because the Sabbath is a delight, I want every man to abide in his place, and let no man go out of his place on day 7. Say what? Well, I said I was going to worship you on the Sabbath. I want to get dressed up and look good and go to church like we did before we knew Sabbath was the 7th day. And we're going to do that like we did on the Sunday when we were forced to do it by the other faith system of Roman Catholicism. Now that I'm a Sabbath keeper, I'm going to go worship you on the right day. Well, beloved, keeping Shabbat is also a right way, not just the right day. Verse 30. So the people rested on the seventh day. Let me read verse 29 and 30 again, so you get it in context. See that Yahweh gave you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gave you on day 6 bread enough for 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested. They did not get dressed up. They did not go down to the tabernacle on the 7th day. You can brag about God and not know him. I ain't judging nobody. But I can read. Let me read it again. Maybe if I missed it, y'all can help me. Verse 29. Shemot 16. 29. See, Yahweh has given you the Sabbath, gave it to you. Therefore, in the 6th day of your work, he gave you bread enough for 2 days, not just one. Because he wants every man to abide in his place, and let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people, under the command of Elohim and Moshe, rested on the 7th day. I can't unread that ever. I can't even in good conscience not read that in context. So to run out and serve people on the Sabbath is contradicting the instructions for the Sabbath. We can't keep asking Yahweh to bless us and then feel as if we have right to the ask, because enter boldly into his throne room and you can ask what you will, right? But Yahweh has already proclaimed, declared, hallowed out, bid, appointed things to us, for us, that can only be revealed to us in the Sabbaths. I can't even begin to explain the difference in the heights our studies go to because of basking in his presence while washing in his word on the day of his visitation. Moedim or 7th day Shabbat. It's an enormous difference. Oh, and then in my tallit, when I'm not with you guys, because I don't wear my tallit on camera often because it freaks people out. They just automatically in mind go to a cult. You know, oh, that's a cult. What are they doing? What are you doing? Forget the fact that I wear a collar. forget the fact that, we wear a suit and a robe for church. We don't think cult then, but dare you put on a tallit. So we do know that the day was made for humanity. Even Messiah told us that in the book of Luke, as well as in the book of Mark. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Shabbat. Say it again. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Here is an analogy Ruach just shared with me to give. The clothing was made for the body of the human, not the body of the human for the clothes. The garment was made for the man, not the man for the garment. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Man was made for days 1 through 6. 1 through 6. But the seventh day, that was made for us. And if we rest in him on that day, the blessings that are in the pockets of this garment, the blessings that are in the package of this day, aid us today, tomorrow, and days later. And as long as we continue to participate and actively gravitate towards it on a regular, consistent basis, it just continues to store up in us and give us stronger immune systems, if I can use that, and sets us up to be strong enough to handle anything that the enemy of faith could ever throw our way. Everything you have need of, Yahweh supplies it. He'll cause you to ride upon the high places. He will feed us with the heritage of Yaakov. Delighting in the Sabbath day of Yahweh makes him elevate you in the earth. That's why you really work. You work so that you can provide for your families. Some of you started businesses so you can be the best in your industry. And Yahweh's like, if you honor me, I'll make you the best in your industry. I'll make you never have lack. Deuteronomy chapter 28. Let's go real quickly. Deuteronomy chapter 28. Why is that important? Because we always quote this, especially within all of our religious pulpits and sermons. We always love to go here and excite the people. It shall come to pass. You'll be blessed in the city and blessed in the field, because you saved. No, not just because you saved. You got to comply with the kingdom that you are behind the walls of. I don't think we really like to talk about that. But he says, my name is your strong tower. The righteous run into the strong tower and they are saved. So when I run into him, I'm running into a place that isolates me from whatever is outside of these walls. So to be a child of Elohim and to be provided for and blessed by him, I have to be in him. In him I live, in him I move, in him I have my being. In here, in order to live here, just like we do with our children who go on to college and then they come back and they want to bring a whole bunch of stuff back. And you're like, hey, son, hey, daughter, we still live here the way you lived before you went to college. Don't bring that back in here. I'm grown now. Well, then go out there and get your own space. I'm grown. Because here we don't live that way. We don't do that here. And so if you don't live by the governance of that residence, then you're not in compliance. You get put out. You get kicked out. You get moved on. You have to go where you want to live the way you want to live. You live by your own governance. But here, as for me in my house, that's what Joshua said. Just an analogy, just a viewpoint. I'm going to serve Yahweh. So when I come into the Sabbath, when I come into Shabbat, I come in based on his governance. And I live here. I exist here. I'm supplied for here by my compliance to his instructions. You are not in America. You are not in the country of your origin. I don't care if it's Uganda. I don't care if it's Ghana. I don't care if it's South Africa. I don't care if it's Cuba. If you don't obey by the laws of that land, you're not a citizen of that land. You're an outlaw. And there are procedures to deal with those who do not comply with the instructions. And I want us to really focus on trying our best to comply to the instructions of his kingdom. We are not in this world. We are, pardon me. We are in this world, but we are not of it because we live by the governance of the kingdom of Elohim in the earth. That's been our whole assignment, to present the kingdom of heaven in the earthen realm. That means that we do our work by the governance of that writ. We deal with people by the governance of that writ. We deal with the fellowship we're in by the governance of that writ. We are charitable by the governance of that writ. But we don't know the writ, and we make things up as we go. Same thing in Christendom. We don't come to his days, but we demand he come to ours. And Yahweh is not obligated to come to your event. You are not the boss of Elohim. Does that seem harsh? Yeah. Well, Deuteronomy 28 makes this statement. It shall come to pass, listen, if you hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. That word voice here is a word associated with the word. That voice is the proclamation of Elohim. So if you will hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, that word diligent is the word shema. It means if you will listen intelligently to his words, attentively to his word, obediently to his word, and make and consider his word the content and context of your life. Discern what his word is saying, and then you turn around and publish what his word says. So when he says, if you will hearken diligently, all of that is incorporated in that. To the voice of Yahweh, who is your Elohim, to the voice, that proclamation of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command you this day, that Yahweh, who is your Elohim, he will set you on high above all nations of the earth. That's what Isaiah tried to tell us. Verse 14, Isaiah 58. When you delight in me, I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth. The prophet never lied. We just never made the connection because we don't read this. But we do like to take this passage, Deuteronomy 28, and just apply it to our lives. Like we could just, rub the genie's bottle. I think, who was it? Tomei said it. We just rub the ladder's lamp, rub the lamp, and act like the God of our salvation and the provisions of our plan of salvation come out of some blue smoke out of a little vase or some vase or some bottle, and we can rub the outside of it until smoke comes. And then poof, we get 3 wishes. Yahweh's not interested in your 3 wishes because he already knows your purpose. He's already got your provisions. He's already got you dressed for every day of your life. And trust me, your wishes don't compare to what he wants for you. What you get complying with him far exponentially exceeds the wishes that we have for ourselves. It doesn't look like it while we're doing the work. But after you have done the will of Elohim, that which shall come, and will not tarry. And Yahweh will set you on high above all nations of the earth. And when they look at you, they can't do nothing to say. Everything they do is blessed. Everything they touch prospers. Who are they? Like the Queen of the South, Queen Sheba? I need to go and find out who this God Yahweh is. Y'all assemble me an entourage, and we're going to go over to Jerusalem and sit with this King Solomon to find out about this God Yahweh, because these people are favored. Do we have that testimony today, believers? Do we have people breaking down doors, braving long journeys to get near us to learn? Do you have that in your life? I'm honored to have the experience personally, like for real. But it wasn't until I began to understand the humility of complying to his word. Just complying to his word. What I thought I should be, what I thought would make me great, I found out would have really had me looking like an idiot in the world. And now, though I had the charisma and all the things to be those images, mimic those images of what was deemed successful, when people search us out now, it's like, hey, I want to learn about this. I mean, you open up my mind to something. I want to have people travel from continents to get here. Some have come completely unannounced. I don't mean one. Or have gone through whatever they need to go through to sit and listen. That's why we open up these teachings to the world, because we have to learn that in the Sabbath, Yahweh answers our issues even when our issue is not being discussed in the studies. He's just more interested in you complying with the instructions to get somewhere and sit down. And let's talk about his word. And when you're taking in his word, you think you took in groceries from him and his holy store over here, and then he slipped something in your bag. And when you get out to work, you know what you got in your bag, but you didn't know he slipped some other stuff in your bag. And then something happens, and that very thing he slipped in your bag deals with the thing that came at you. I know that's a terrible, that's not the best type of an analogy to make that get over, but it is so much the truth. Yahweh already knows what you and I got need of. What he needs us to do is to sit down in Sabbath and rest unto him. And here's the catch. When you rest unto Yahweh, like many of you right now, I always get testimonies every week. Apostle, I was on with you, man, but it was late night, and I went to sleep with the word. I went to sleep with the teachings in my ear. When you rest unto Yahweh and you first start getting into his word, I need you not to have a complex when you find yourself waking up and you're like, I don't know when I went to sleep, because the word will put you to sleep so that surgery can begin on you. Yahweh can't fix you when you are wide awake thinking in your ever running mind, because your mind will get in the way of what he wants to do. That's why he gives you dreams once you have gone to sleep. So your brain doesn't get in the way of the instruction he's trying to share with you. And because we don't know him and the methodology he uses and the modum of operatum that he operates, he functions within, we think that the dreams, once we do get to sleep, because it had some negative visual, negative optics, we think that the dream was a nightmare. There are no such things as nightmares. The issue is, the more grim the vision and the dream is really an indictment of how close or how far away from him we are. Because he only uses in dreams the things you are most given to be entertained by. So if you're entertained by the zombies of the living dead, then your dreams may incorporate zombies of the living dead to get a spiritual and righteous message to you. If you love basketball, your dreams may consist of basketball or sports analogies to get the instruction to you. If you are a romantic, then your dreams will have these romantic scenarios because that's what appeals to you most, and that will get the instruction to you. But the dream's interpretation isn't predicated on the dream's presentation. The dream's presentation is predicated on your proximity to him. Thank God you're dreaming. Thank Yahweh you're dreaming, because that means he's at least trying to talk to us. Just don't misconstrue dreams for nightmares. All dreams come only from Elohim. I don't care who told you different. So when you get a dream, it is not for you to interpret it. Even an interpreter of dreams does not interpret their own. I know it personally, but I can also explain it to you biblically. Y'all know Usef? It was Jacob's 10th son. You remember him? The baby he finally had with Rachel, the woman he fell in love with and got tricked to marry his sister. I remember Jacob, right? Jacob had a son named Usef. And Usef was the 10th son of his lineage. And as they grew up, Usef would get these dreams. He could never figure them out. These dreams in presentation made their brothers think that they could interpret them. And when he would share with them, like, guys, can y'all help me understand? I keep getting these dreams. And they'd look at the presentation and not realize that the presentation was salvation and the instructions of what would happen. They, in their pride and jealousy and their culture, preconceived idea, they thought Usef was trying to usurp authority over them. And then they had some jealousy towards him because daddy made him a coat of many colors. And so daddy loved his mother more than he loved our mother. And so, you know, that's why Usef is favored. Now he around here talking about he gonna be running us and all this, not realizing that the dreams that Usef were having was so that they could be saved later. Point is, Usef is having dreams. He takes them to his brother because he can't interpret them. He takes them to his father because he can't interpret them. He doesn't understand them. They okay, it looks like this. It could be that. It could... See, some of y'all need to realize that you don't just take your dreams to anybody, because sometimes the people you take your dreams to, your dreams could get you killed. Technically, Usef's dream got him killed. Be careful who you tell your dreams to. Everybody's not able and everybody's not worthy to know the instructions Yahweh has for your life. And it may even be there to help the people who ultimately are responsible for your death. Your dreams could get you killed. So, not in the wrong hands, right? So Usef, along with jealousy from his brothers and the whole storyline there, they throw him into a hole. Want to leave him for dead. Wanted to put their hands on him to kill him. But somebody had sense in the group. They saw a hole and dropped him in a well and left him there for dead. Somehow, conscience got to them. All because of his dreams. Y'all run around here telling people about your dreams. You better be careful. Stop telling people what Yahweh told you. It ain't their business. Usef then goes, rather they go and then pull him out because they see a band of Ishmaelite traders coming. They sell him 30 pieces. To Ishmaelite traders. Ishmaelite traders don't survive. They get sold into slave camps and slave mines. Somehow Usef didn't make it to the Ishmaelites' last destination, a magistrate in the region of Egypt, purchased Usef along the journey. Usef is now sold into prison. He's now sold into Potiphar's house. From Potiphar's house, to make the story shorter, he ends up, by false accusation, sent to jail. Now, he blessed the house he was in because he could read. He was a slave who had very high. Yeah, he was just, he's a prince. You have a prince as an indentured servant. So he blesses this house with his information, his organization, his structure. He causes this place to be efficient and proficient. And then he's falsely accused by the mistress, sent into prison. Now, remember, he could never interpret dreams. He could never interpret his own dreams. But when dreams would come from other people, he would know exactly what to tell them. He would know exactly what it meant. So he interprets the dream of two individuals of the hierarchy of Egypt who are right now under investigation. And while under investigation, we need to put you in a place that you don't run from. They put him in jail. While they put him in jail, Usef is in prison. Y'all know the story. He makes the prison high class, efficient, still hard, but it functioned well. And these Upper Egypt society individuals end up there. And they dream dreams. He knew exactly what to tell them, no hesitation. Everything he said about the dreams that he was given came to pass. The butcher died. The cupbearer was sent back to Pharaoh's house, just like the dream said. Some years later, the cupbearer is in the king's presence, in Pharaoh's presence. And while in Pharaoh's presence, Pharaoh has a dilemma. He has dreams recently. He got dreams of cows and corn. He don't know what the heck this means. And all of his voodoo and all of his witch doctors and all of his sorcerers and all of his witches and all the people he's got, his diviners, none of them, his seers, none of them could understand and interpret the king's dream. The cupbearer remembered, saw the dilemma. He took chance many years later and then tells the king, the Pharaoh, I know a guy. King, remember when you, Pharaoh, had me in jail and you couldn't make sense of what happened? And then I had a dream, and the guy you executed in my case also had a dream. Well, when I gave my dream to this guy in prison, he told me I would be serving you again, and here I am. The baker, he told him his dream, and he told the baker he would be executed and hung in 3 days, and that's exactly what you did, Mr. Pharaoh. He says, so if he's still in prison, I think he is, he may be able to help, O king. So Usef goes because they come and get him. They clean him up. They wash him up, scrub him down, present him to the king. And then the king begins to share his dream with him. And Usef begins to spit it out. The king is upset. He turns around and says, who told this man my dream before he got here? Usef is like, king, I'm just hearing this for the first time. These people don't talk to me. I'm in prison. You heard me? So Usef begins to interpret the king's dreams. My point is, the king's dream is interpreted by one who interprets dreams, but the one who interprets dreams could never interpret his own dreams, because if he had, he would have known the position he was in at that moment was what he was set for. That's what the instructions were for. So he gets the interpretation to the Pharaoh, saves the empire. And because he was set over that process of the instructions of the dreams, he actually became the image of his own dreams 20 some odd years later. So your dreams could get you killed around people who are not as sincere to serve the Father as you are. Wow. Your dreams will have you hated on. You don't share them with everybody. And you, though man of God, woman of God, can't interpret your own dreams. Stop it. Even I interpret dreams. I can't interpret my own. I've tried. And every time I think, I got it, God, I've been doing enough of these dreams interpretation. And I'm like, by the time I go to the two that I trust that are truly anointed to do that, and they are very few and far between, people. Just because you a prophet, just because you a quote unquote, I'm a seer, I see, don't mean you interpret dreams. Doesn't mean they interpret dreams. Oh, I'm a prophet, I'm a seer, I'm the pastor. No. It is a gift of Ruach HaKodesh, and he gives it to whom he wills. And in proper process, the one who dreams cannot and does not interpret their own dreams. Even though Yahweh Ruach HaKodesh may use them to interpret everybody else's dreams around them. So be careful of thinking your dreams are nightmares. Your dreams can also help you understand how far you are away from him. I remember when I was unsaved, my dreams led me into situation. I'm sorry. Is this a representation of the two men on the cross? Lessons learned. I don't know where you are in your question. However, back to the point, when you get an instruction from Elohim, it is not for the rest of the world to know it. Yahweh sends it to you so you know instructionally how to move forward. He makes that happen. He does that. The instructions are key. So when Usef gets his dreams as a boy before he's sold by his brothers, it talks about them all in the field working as they would do. See, they were used to work in the fields. That's why Yahweh used the sheaves to get the instruction to them. He says they were in the field, and all their sheaves bowed down to his. Then another time, he has another dream, and it says they were the stars and the moon, and their mom was the moon, their dad was the sun, and all of them bowed down to the star that was him. And they're like, "You mean to tell me that mom and dad gonna bow down to you?" And he had not interpreted the dream. He couldn't interpret the dream, but when they heard it, they saw type and stuff they didn't want to, be a part of understanding. But at the end of the day, everything in the dream came to fruition. Their sheaves did bow down to his sheaves. Watch this. The sheaves were sheaves of wheat. 20 years later, the dilemma in the land was wheat was king. And Usef and the Pharaoh that day was commissioned to build silos to hold grain so that the people after the drought, during the drought, could live. The dream came to fruition, even the types and the symbolisms inside the dream. And ultimately, even the stars, the moon, and the sun bowing down to him, they did. Because he became in that land, Zaphanath Paneah. He became the man next to Pharaoh. Nothing was higher than Zaphanath Paneah, Usef, than the throne of the Pharaoh. So when you came into Egypt, you all bowed down. Mom, who wasn't alive, but father, and each one of them, they just didn't know who they were bowing to. All right. The hour is getting late. It's been going on 4 hours. I'll be back at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk more about some things Torah related and method of operations that Yahweh uses from Torah so we can have an impact in our lives daily. I hope that you guys have been edified. I'll be back around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, whatever that time becomes for you in your time zone. You're more than welcome to come back. Again, this is a safe place. We just talk about the writ. We don't argue, fight, fuss, antagonize, or come in here judging. We simply just read the writ, talk about it, and it may raise issues we do that make us check ourselves and laugh at ourselves and judge ourselves. But it's a safe place for us to be washed by the cleansing of the water, which is the word of Elohim. All right. To all of our dear countrymen, all of our beloved brothers and sisters from other countries, we so love you guys. So glad that you're with us again, here to study a little bit. If you got thoughts or questions or something you want to study or a subject matter you want us to search out and flesh out right here on the passages or on the programs, we'd love to do that. Just inbox us, channel us up, DM us, whatever it takes. But I know some of you are already passed out sleep. I'll hear the stories later on. That I got to catch the replays, Apostle. I went to sleep while you was talking. All right. And if anything is true to what I saw earlier today when we had a replay because of our new studio place did not get the internet and the signals, everything was right. But if anything is true about that, I found out that sometimes we talk too much, and that we was me. So I got a chance to listen to me talk. I was like, why is can he just stop talking? You ever do that? You ever listen to yourself on video or on tape or on your album, and you have to, you're glad that you're the one doing the editing because you can go in and cut all this stuff out and it just leave the word. Well, today I listened to myself on a replay and I was like, oh dear God, just stop talking, man. Be quiet. So I'm glad y'all sleep, and I confess that because I don't want to hear about it later on. But there'll be those of you that are on call that are going to sleep. That's I see the accent. That's the UK. Y'all up and bright and bushy-tailed right now. So yes, you guys are doing it. I'll be back on in a few hours. I'm gonna go get some rest, lay my head down. As I got a couple chapters I got to read real quick. I'm gonna go read those chapters, and I'll be back tomorrow morning around 11 a.m. ish. It might meet 12 noon, but I'll be back either way to open my studies on a subject that I think are, something we should look at. Nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. But the more we take time to intentionally remind ourselves of things the word points out, in that redundancy, the layers come off and we see deeper, we see better, and we're able to stabilize ourselves in a lot of stuff. So if you got a subject you want to talk about tomorrow, come on back on. Give me the subject. If you want to shoot it to me in an email or in a text, I'll look it up and we'll sit and study it together as a group. Because I can't teach y'all on Sabbath, even though I'm doing a lot of talking right now, because I think y'all sleep, except for parts of the UK. And they won't talk at this hour in the UK because they're still doing tea. They're doing their morning tea. They probably got their Earl. How many of y'all got Earl Grey up right now? I know y'all do. I'm sure y'all do. Green tea's up. And so they don't want to talk. They want to take it down. So prayerfully, we'll get them to chat more at our 11 a.m., 12 a.m. time, 12 p.m. time, because it'll be their afternoon. Does that sound right, UK? Uganda, I ain't forgot y'all.
That's right.
Good. Uganda, I haven't forgotten y'all either. Ghana, y'all on that same time. I know y'all still getting your in the morning hours right now. But and Vietnam is like what, 4 p.m. for you guys, I think, or something like that. But we're glad to have all of you guys on. Hope that you guys are blessed. I do speak Shabbat Shalom over each of your lives. We'll talk a bit about what Shabbat Shalom means when you make it a decree tomorrow. So let's learn how to keep our minds in the Word and don't let anything distract you until your Sabbath is over. Stay in His Word. My name is Apostle V.W. Jones. I'm signing out for this segment of the Sabbath on this day. We'll be back shortly in a few hours to continue and probably end our day of the Shabbat. Love you guys to life eternal, and we'll see you in the morning. Shalom Aleichem.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Call will end in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Shabbat Shalom.